on the SBI Facebook page, and complete recording of the event will be available on the SBI YouTube channel. It is also requested that if any participant post pictures of the SBI event on their website or Facebook pages, kindly mention the credit that the event is organized by SBI in collaboration with the Department of Political Science and China Study Center. The views expressed in this event are those of the speakers and do not reflect the views of the SBI or China Study Center and the Department of Political Science, University of Peshawar. It is also requested that please switch off your mobile phones or put them on mute. We have made a slight change in the program, and all the session will be conducted without any break. That will be followed by a lunch. Today we are here for this joint seminar, Strategic Environment in the Indian Ocean Region and Policy Option for Pakistan, organized by SBI with the collaboration of Department of Political Science and China Study Center, University of Peshawar. Due to its economic and strategic importance, competition between major powers is increasing in the Indian Ocean region. Recently, world has witnessed China's economic rise, US desire to rebalance Asia, and Russia's pivot in the Indian Ocean region. Hence, the SBI, keeping in view the significance of the subject, organized this seminar in collaboration with China Study Center and the Department of Political Science, University of Peshawar, in order to have thoughtful discussion on the subject. We are grateful that we have Dr. Zahid Anwar, the Pro-Vice Chancellor and Director of China Study Center, as well as Chairman Department of Political Science, for collaboration and facilitating us for this program. Today, for our inaugural session, we are grateful that we have the Pro-Vice Chancellor, Dr. Zahid Anwar, and we have Dr. Nasir Hafiz, Director Research Strategic Vision Institute. Let me first invite Dr. Zahid Anwar for welcoming remarks. But before that, I would like to touch his brief bio. Dr. Zahid Anwar is a Pro-Vice Chancellor, University of Peshawar. He is also Dean Faculty of Social Sciences, Chairman, Department of Political Science, and Director, China Study Center, University of Peshawar. He has 30 years university-level teaching experience. Dr. Zahid has published more than 40 research papers in international impact factor journals in political science with focus on Pakistan, China, Afghanistan, India, higher education, foreign policy analysis, political philosophy and research methodology. He is a member of the HEC TTS Grievances Committee, member of Academic Council, Peshawar University, member Senate, Bajahan University, Charsadda, member of ASRB for Arts and Humanities, University of Peshawar, member Board of Study, Political Science Department, member Graduate Study Committee, Political Science Department, member Board of Faculty of Social Sciences. Moreover, he is a member of the Board of Studies, Department of Political Science of Abdul University, Mardan, member Board of Studies, Political Science Department, Islamabad College University, member Graduate Study Committee, Economics Department, University of Peshawar. So I invite Dr. Zahid Anwar to come and give his welcoming remarks. Please, sir.
नहमदुहु व नसल्ली अला रसूलिहिल करीम अम्मा बाद फाऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम. Dr. Nasir Hafiz, Director, Strategic Vision Institute, Islamabad, Honorable faculty members of University of Peshawar, HODs of different departments, University of Peshawar, particularly faculty, Department of Political Science, University of Peshawar, dear students from different department of university, particularly students of Department of Political Science. I welcome you to this seminar organized by Strategic Vision Institute in collaboration of Department of Political Science, University of Peshawar, and China Study Center, University of Peshawar, on Indian Ocean. policy options for Pakistan. We are thankful to Strategic Vision Institute for giving us opportunity to collaborate with them, to cooperate with them in this academic activity. It is a forum provided by Strategic Vision Institute to learn about Indian Ocean, to learn about Pakistan national interest. We are thankful to that institute for this opportunity. Apart from that, the team of Strategic Vision Institute told me that Chima Saab is not feeling well, so he couldn't come. Kindly convey our thanks to him for this opportunity, for this collaboration. We hope that in future, Department of Political Science, University of Peshawar and Strategic Vision Institute will further collaborate, will jointly organize many more programs here at this campus as well as at Balagali campus of University of Peshawar. We have many scholars, resource persons from different universities, and they are expert in the field. We have Professor Dr. A.Z. Hilali. We are particularly thankful to him for sparing time from his busy schedule. He is HOD of Department of Political Science, rather Dean of Social Sciences at Abbasin University. We welcome you, sir, for this for sparing time for us, and he will talk about strategic environment in the Indian Ocean region. Apart from that, we are also thankful to Dr. Amir Raza, a Harvard graduate, assistant professor at Department of Political Science. He will focus on Paul and its implication for Pakistan. We welcome you, Dr. Amir Raza Sahab. Apart from that, Mr. Sufyanullah, Senior Research Officer, CISS, Islamabad. Sufyanullah Sahab will talk about Indian naval strategy, repercussions for regional security architecture. This session will followed by question answers, and then in the second session we have Ayusha Khan, nuclearization of the Indian Ocean region. We also have Professor Dr. Hussain Shaheed Suharwardi, Chairman Department of International Relations, who will focus on policy options for Pakistan in the Indian Ocean region. We welcome all those resource persons and experts, and we hope that our students and we learn from them. In the end, one point I would like to share with you, our Vice Chancellor was chief guest here, but due to urgent meeting in the Provincial Assembly, he left for meeting there, and hopefully he will join us later. In the end of this, I welcome you all to this seminar. Thank you very much for coming and for joining us.
Thank you, sir, for your welcoming remarks. Now I would like to invite Dr. Nasir Hafiz, Director Research, Strategic Vision Institute. Before that, I would like to touch his brief bio. Dr. Nasir holds a PhD from the Department of International Relations, National Defense University, Islamabad. He has been associated with CES, Johns Hopkins University, as visiting research associate in South Asian Studies Center. He has published research papers in various journals and participated in several international and national conferences. His research areas are national and international security, national nuclear strategy, nuclear diplomacy, arms control and disarmament, discourse analysis, and strategic foresight. I invite you, sir, to come and give introductory remarks about this year.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I think my Pashto is very poor, but I have collected one word to say on this start of this event, Dera Dera Manana. So I'm very grateful and thankful to you for giving us this opportunity to come from Islamabad and organize this event in joint collaboration with the Department of Political Science and the China Studies Center. I'm profoundly privileged to be part of today's proceeding among the company of such an eminent galaxy of scholars, researchers, at one of the oldest and I think the most prestigious academic institution of Pakistan. I, on behalf of Executive Director Dr. Zafar Iqbal Chima and the entire team of SBI, express my extreme gratitude to the Vice Chancellor who unfortunately could not attend, and then to the Pro-Vice Chancellor who is present here, the Dean Faculty of Social Science, Dr. Zaid Anwar sir. We are really thankful to you for giving us this opportunity to come and join you on this proceeding. I also appreciate the hard work of the entire team of the Political Science Department and also of the China Studies Center who have been in collaboration with us. Ladies and gentlemen, a few words about the Strategic Vision Institute. It is an autonomous, multidisciplinary and non-partisan institution established in January 2013 in Islamabad. At SBI, we intend to project strategic foresight on issues of national and international importance through dispassionate, impartial and independent research, analyses and studies. The primary focus of the SBI is to provide a framework of professional expertise, doctrinal wisdom and foresight on political, diplomatic and military dimensions of the state policies. SBI aims to offer analysis based on objective research and studies on strategic, security and policy studies, nuclear power and policy, safety and security, nuclear doctrine and deterrence, arms control and disarmament and non-proliferation, regional, international peace, security and stability. At SBI, we regularly organize workshops, in-house discussions, seminars and conferences and publish our books, journals and reports. We regularly publish 2 journals, one electronic journal, SBI Strategic Foresight on monthly basis, and another journal of security and strategic analysis on biannual basis, which is HSC recognized journal. And we invite you all to submit your papers in this journal, and I think it is really, it would be a great honor for us to publish your work. Details about the SBI has been, I think, reflected on the screen, and you would also access our website for further detail. A few words about the seminar. Ladies and gentlemen, the Indian Ocean is the 3rd largest water body stretching from Strait of Malacca and western coast of Australia in the east to the Mozambique Channel in the west. Along its coast are countries that are home to some 2.7 billion people. Half of the world's containerized freight and 2/3 of oil shipment travel through Indian Ocean. The importance of trade and the sheer scope of its sub-region make Indian Ocean critical in terms of military and strategic engagements. Any disruption along its trading route will impact the entire globe and its energy security, especially economies like China, Japan, South Korea, which depends on energy imports primarily via the Malacca Strait. As we all know, that United States was a key player in the region throughout the Cold War alongside Soviet Union, but later Washington reduced the engagements. By the early 21st century, the US presence in the Indian Ocean and mostly is now limited to supporting its mission in Afghanistan and in Middle East. Now the United States is preoccupied with its commitments in the Pacific, in Europe after the Russo-Ukrainian war, and now with the rise of China as an economic power, US desires to rebalance Asia, and Russian Spirit East policy are creating new opportunities and challenges. US is providing state-of-the-art military equipment to India and building its counterbalance to China and net security provider in the region. This changing Indian role in the wider Indian Ocean could affect Pakistan's security and economic interests negatively. A renewed focus on strengthening Pakistan's capability to meet emerging challenges, protecting our exclusive economic zones and ensuring freedom of navigation will remain critical. The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor provides us an opportunity to expand our exports and industrial base, and Pakistan's vast coastline presents unexplored opportunities for trade, connectivity, natural resource exploration and wealth generation. A comprehensive maritime policy therefore necessary to tap these economic potentials of our maritime sector. With this in view, today's seminar is being organized to suggest comprehensive policy options for Pakistan to safeguard our national interest, and we look forward to our experts and scholars in today's two sessions and this seminar for highly educating and enlightening deliberation and discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nasir, for your kind remarks and introduction about the Strategic Vision Institute. Now we will shortly begin our first academic session and second session. Ladies and gentlemen, the second session of the seminar will be chaired by Dr. Zahid Anwar. We have three speakers in the second session. The first speaker of the session is Dr. Izzat Hilali, Chairman, Department of Politics in IR Wasim University, Peshawar. Dr. Hilali is Professor and HOD in the Department of Governance, Politics, IR and Public Policy. He did PhD from the University of Hull, North Yorkshire, United Kingdom. Before joining Abbasini University, Dr. Hilali was Professor of International Relations in the Department of Political Science. He was also TTS Professor and member of various universities and HEC academic committees. Dr. Hilali is a prolific writer and has published more than 21 research articles in renowned international journals and more than 50 research papers in HEC recognized journals. He is also an author of a solo book titled Pakistan Relationship, Soviet Invasion of Afghanistan, published by a leading Western publisher, Peshawar from London. He is a distinguished figure in Pakistan and has won Star Awards from South Asian Literary Society in 2006. Dr. Hilali will be speaking on strategic environment and great power politics in the Indian Ocean region. So you may present from the rostrum or if you like. Okay.
Thank you so much. First of all, thanks to SVI, Strategic Vision Institute, Islamabad. Then thanks to Zahid Anwar, who has three titles: Pro Vice Chancellor, then Dean, and then a Chairman, Department of Political Science. And I'm very proud. I need to spend 3-time Chairman of the Department of Political Science very brilliantly. Or it was the dynamic time. I am very proud of that time, what I did it. And still there is a great infrastructure which I left there, and people are enjoying, and the department will be facilitating at the moment. Dr. Zahid Anwar, greatly thanks to the Department of Political Science students. That's how I take your attention, because we have a student from the Abbasini University, right? Girls and boys together, and they please stand up all who belong to the Abbasini University. And they have a participation, and please give a big hand to them. Thank you so much. Please sit down.
Thank you, Dr. Sir.
So there is not only a political science or international relations and various other departments of the Peshawar University. Even the Abbasini is also participating very proudly and very nicely or precisely. Anyhow, I am going to present a paper or a presentation, please. Mustafa, you have to start. You will enjoy my presentation is basically based on some of the facts and figures, and then coming back to the very dynamically on the world politics, to what is going on in terms of blue water navy, one way or another way. Then we will see it precisely. I have given something in a way that people have to be enjoyed. What is the basic reality? No doubt that Indian Ocean is the third largest ocean after the Atlantic and Pacific. But there are many things which are missing for the student. So please you go to the next. That is the very valuable thing in terms of Indian Ocean, which I call it one ocean, many names. So that is the ocean which have a historically name sometime back called Eastern Ocean, Indic Ocean, Hindu Ocean, and then Persian Ocean. And there was a time when some of the authors, Greco-Roman, in the 5th century, they have given the name of Thessene Sea, name of the king of the waters. And we seen it after the 1857. James Morris has given name to this ocean, British Lake in German. And then ultimately, next please. Ultimately, Queen Victoria in 1877 given name to the whole of the region and changed from the Persian name Hindustan or a Hindu name Bharat, and even then given name to British colony India and called also the Indian Ocean like a ocean to Indian Ocean. So try to go to the Victoria, basically, which she has given the name. After the emergence of Pakistan, the country, Pakistan demanded from the platform of the United Nations that the name of the Indian Ocean is not appropriate and it should be as per the representation of the two major regions of Asia and Africa. So Pakistan had proposed the name in the Technical Committee of the United Nations, Afro-Asian Ocean. So there is a great backing and support to Pakistan, but I don't know what is the basic reason and what are the basic hurdles not to changing the name. Geopolitical politics of the nation based on Alfred Mahan. That is the main assumption which this person is one of the competent authority in the Indian Ocean, and he called whoever controls the Indian Ocean dominate Asia. This ocean is the key to the 7 seas. In the 21st century, the destiny of the world will be decided on its water. Indian Ocean is the 3rd largest ocean, as mentioned the speaker, and also in terms of after Atlantic and Pacific, but very rich ocean in the world. Next, please. Alfred Mahan was the first person who has given the idea and divided Indian Ocean in general in like 7 parts, which are the 7 seas in the world. So it can be Arabian Sea, Andaman Sea, Dead Sea, Java Sea, and then Lacetic Sea, Red Sea, and Timur Sea. These are the names which given by the Alfred Mahan. So we will see them in next, with perception based on Robert Kaplan, who is the living geopolitics politician of the Indian Ocean, and he talked about geopolitics is the battle for space and power play out in a geographical setting, just as there are militarily geopolitics, diplomatic geopolitics, and economic geopolitics. There is also energy geopolitics for natural resources and the trade routes that bring those resources to consumer. Is the central to the study of the geography. This is the Robert Kalam, who I just recently, in the recent past, published book on the monsoon. Indian Ocean is an area which will be the true nexus of the world power confrontation in the coming years. It is also volatile and recognizable geography which already forms central stage for the challenges of the 21st century body of the world ocean water politics. Next, please. Like Alfred Mahan, Robert Kaplan also had divided the ocean with the different names, and he also described in the 8 parts, as you have seen in the on the presentation. These are the names which given and divided by the Robert Kaplan. How much like a total we can be say around 17 seas or 70 divisions are existing in the waters of the Indian Ocean. Yes, please. And that is more important. Key choke points, not only in the Indian Ocean. Basically, there are 7 key choke points in the world, and within the 7, 4 based on Indian Ocean. These can be Malacca, it can be Strait of Hormuz, or it's a Bab el-Mandeb or Mozambique. These based on the Indian Ocean. 4 are more important, which are playing a very great part or very vital role in the world politics. That is the main light ocean, which have around 36 islands, and you can see some of the major islands based on the Indian Ocean. And even my article is going to be published in one of the Egyptian journal. I can be share with you. Next, please. In the same way, there are total 13 gulfs in the Indian Ocean, more than in Atlantic and the Pacific, and these all are very strategically important, politically important, and these are the routes which are basically moving on and based on the world trade, which you will see in the next my presentation, how much these all gulfs are working one way or other way in the strategic manner in the Indian Ocean. And that is the part diversity of Indian Ocean. As mentioned, Dr. Nasser Saab, Indian Ocean is the home of 7 billion people, and you must be know about this matter. There are total 38 countries around this like Indonesia, 21 in Asia, 13 in Africa, 1 is Oceania, and 2 islands. So that means the total strength is 38 countries who are existing. The Indian Ocean is the home to major sea routes connecting the Middle East, Africa, and East Asia and Europe and the America. The Indian Ocean also is the home to the world 2 new nuclear power states, India and Pakistan, as well as the Iran will be the next, which most observers believe that Iran is close to be acquired nuclear weapons. Geoeconomic of the Indian Ocean. Indian Ocean covers about 71% of the surface of the earth. Indian Ocean is the richest in mineral resources, including manganese, copper, iron, zinc, silver, gold, and many others. Indian Ocean is the line of the world economy, and 30% of the world trade flow through its ports. 80% of the Indian Ocean trade is extra-regional, and 40% of the world oil supply and 64% of the oil trade run through the main passages of the ocean. The region contains oil, natural gas, and unlimited mineral resources. Fishing in the ocean accounts for almost 50% of the world total and has increased more. Indian Ocean is the vital trading hub connecting the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and East Asia, as well as Europe and Americas. The Indian Ocean holds 16.8% of the world proven oil reserve and 27.9% of the proven natural gas reserve. Two-thirds of the global oil ship travel through the Indian Ocean, especially through the choke points of the Strait of Hormuz and Malacca. Indian Ocean economy is around 30.5% of global iron production and 70.8% of the world gold production. Here is the contemporary geostrategic environment. Since beginning of the blue water politics, the Indian Ocean has become a key strategic arena and considered as strategically vital for regional and global power to secure export of the crude oil from the Persian Gulf to highly industrialized countries and the rest of the world. It is highway to conflict zone and critical route for global trade and commercial activities because of its potentially volatile location for geopolitical strife. US hard power diplomacy and China aggressive soft power diplomacy has widened, being seen as arguably the most important elements in shaping the Indian Ocean strategic environment, transforming the entire region's dynamics. However, China has secured considerable goodwill and influence among countries in the Indian Ocean region. The US seems to be determined to protect the vital commercial highways in the ocean or seas, maintaining defense in depth to keep critical choke points open and sanitizing the region against broader geostrategic competition and rivalry in Asia Pacific and the Indian Ocean. US preserving its political, economic, and strategic interests not through new regional initiative or commands, but by old-fashioned alliance management with Asia Pacific countries, as well as fostering a strategic partnership with India to contain or encircle China. China has emerged as a strong partner for the islands and territorial countries of the Indian Ocean. The Maritime Silk Road under Beijing Belt and Road Initiative has provided an added platform to collaboration on economic and military issues. China set up its first overseas military facility in Djibouti on the Indian Ocean coast and has been countered the power of France, India, Japan, and the United States because the Chinese base cement its position as a new player in the Indian Ocean region. The China presence in the region has become a source of shared anxiety for France, India, and United States and others. So there are certain level of traditional security threats, maritime boundary dispute, long-standing India-Pakistan conflict, India-China rivalry, environmental challenges, criminal threats, transnational threat, insurgency and organized crime. Novel traditional security threats also in terms of like a nuclear proliferation, natural disasters, piracy, armed not by neutralizing each other. And without that, it is difficult to stabilize developments in security order of Asia. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hilali, for enlightening us about the Indian Ocean region and also for concluding your presentation in time. It's exactly 14 minutes, and I request the next speaker to be in time as their 15 minutes allotted time. Now we have the second speaker. Is Dr. Amir Raza, Assistant Professor, Department of Political Science, University of Peshawar. Dr. Amir has received his PhD as a Fulbright Fellow. He writes regularly for academic journals and for the largest English language newspaper in Pakistan, the News International. Additionally, Dr. Amir makes appearance on national and international electronic media. Dr. Amir will be speaking on Quad and its implication for Pakistan. Please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. First of all, I am very thankful to the Strategic Vision Institute and to Professor Dr. Zahid Anwar Saab, whose very elaborate title has been repeated a few times. I am not going to venture into that once again. So I thank all of you for allowing me this opportunity personally to come and speak to not only my own students and my own colleagues from the Department of Political Science, but also to speak to other faculty members and students of other departments and other institutions, not only from the University of Peshawar, but as Hilali Saab pointed out, to the students of other universities, particularly the Abbasin University. For my own presentation, the first thing that I wanted to say is that I think Hilali Saab provided me a very good groundwork to build on for my own presentation. I think there are a number of things that I'm supposed to say here that would only make sense in relation with what Hilali Saab had already he has already laid down in front of us. So my own presentation, as you could see, both in the program as well as on the screen there, it is on Quad and its implications for Pakistan. So we should go to the first slide. So the first question that I've asked, or that I want to present in front of everyone, is what Quad actually is. So Quad actually means quadrilateral security dialogue. It's a strategic security dialogue that includes 4 countries, which are the United States of America, Japan, Australia, and India. So if you look at these countries, you would realize that the only country that is not from this region, from what is called the Indo-Pacific region, is the United States of America. The other 3 countries claim to be, with their own varying levels, they claim to be the largest regional democracies in this region. So these are the members of what we call Quad. So Quad initially started as an informal partnership for humanitarian assistance after the 2004 Asian tsunami. Some of you might remember, some among the older generation, that this was one of the most significant natural disasters to have hit the region. So this is where Quad initially started in terms of the humanitarian assistance, where the navies of all of these different countries had to cooperate, assist and collaborate with each other to provide humanitarian assistance. However, when it was proposed by the Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, he proposed to formalize Quad as an arrangement, like I said, as a security dialogue between these 4 important countries. He also called it the arc of democracy in this region. However, although this was formalized in 2007, for the longest time Quad remained dormant, and the reason was that as soon as the arrangement was formalized, the Chinese government, especially the Chinese Navy, raised its apprehension regarding Quad, the Chinese expressed that they saw this as an attempt to contain and encircle the rise of China, which then dissuaded Australia particularly from actively participating in Quad. So therefore, like I said, it remained, the arrangement remained dormant for about 10 years. Again, when Donald Trump came into power in the United States of America, and when the government in Australia changed, the Quad was resurrected once more. So what we now see, you can in some way call it Quad 2.0, the more active Quad that we've seen until 2007 or since 2007. And at the end, if you can see, I also put a point there which says Quad Plus. So the idea is that Quad is not going to remain limited to these 4 countries that have initially founded this arrangement or countries that are part of this arrangement. Rather, there is an attempt to, in different ways, extend this arrangement to other countries that the initial founders see as countries that share similar visions or similar strategic goals. So this is where Quad is, like I said, what the initial Quad is, and where Quad Plus probably is heading. So what is the objectives of Quad? As I said to begin with, Quad started as a humanitarian assistance, or that was the idea, that's where the idea of the collaboration came. However, I think if you ask anyone who has any understanding of the politics of the Indo-Pacific and particularly of the Indian Ocean region, they would tell you that the primary objective of Quad is to contain the growing Chinese influence in the Indo-Pacific region, or what the Chinese also call the two-ocean strategy, where the Chinese are operating on both these oceans in order to, like I said, create a regional connectivity network which is driven by the Chinese economic muscle, and therefore then it also adds to the Chinese economic muscle. But there is, like I said in the beginning, there is always also an ideological dimension. So these countries are trying to frame this, and those of you who are students of political science, and I are, and I'm sure most of you are, you fall in that category, you would see this ideological dimension in the Cold War terms, where the primary focus was on the fault lines between those countries that professed or that promoted a rather democratic form of governance, as opposed to those that had a more socialist or communist outlook. So, like I said in the beginning as well, as I mentioned, the Chinese Prime Minister already called it the Asian arc of democracy, meaning that this is something that is meant for the promotion of democracy. So, in addition to the strategic goals, you also have these ideological goals. But these countries, they've also laid out that they would collaborate not only in the maritime domain, which is obviously the primary focus, since we are talking about, as Hilali Saab pointed out, we are talking about the naval warfare and at least the display of naval strength, but it would also extend to other areas, for example, space and climate change and health and cyber security, not only between the Quad countries, but also including the Quad Plus countries. But there are also, when it comes to the objectives, there are also individual state objectives. So India has its own regional ambitions, as I'm sure most of you would know, that India, again, especially with regard to its rivalry with China and its desire to dominate the South Asian region, so that is what brings India into Quad, or that's what India wants from Quad. Whereas the United States, as recently there has been a talk of what people, the IER and political science community are calling it the Thucydides trap. So if the Thucydides trap is correct, so that makes the United States of America as a status quo power, which then is trying to maintain status quo in the Indo-Pacific region, and therefore Quad can be seen in that broader theoretical framework as well. So how will Quad operate? So obviously there is an arrangement, there is an understanding of what Quad is, but there are very few clear indications as to how these countries want to go about it. To begin with, there has been no formal military alliance between the Quad countries as of today. There is no formal military alliance, there is no defense pact, there is no understanding or undertaking that these countries would come to the defense of each other if they need it. As of now, what we can see is that there is a lower level military cooperation between these countries, meaning that there have been military exercises that not only include the Quad countries, but that have from time to time included other countries that are outside of Quad, but they've also participated in naval and military exercises in the region. For example, the Malabar exercises. And the Japanese Prime Minister also pointed out that they can have coordinated diplomatic pressure and there can be an economic strategy, meaning that all of the Quad countries, especially because all of these are very important countries, they can assert their own diplomatic pressure in order to promote their collective and individual goals by putting pressure on other countries diplomatically. There is also talk of the tracking of dark shipping. So the initial idea for the Quad was that there is a lot of unregulated shipping navigation activity that is taking place in the Indian Ocean region, and therefore these countries, they at least claimed that the idea is that we should be able to control what is called dark shipping. Dark shipping means that there are ships that navigate in open seas that switch off their transponders so that other countries are not able to track them. So that's the idea. So now coming to Pakistan. Can we go to the previous slide? Yes, this one. Coming to Pakistan. And what is Pakistan's perception of Quad? Because that's primarily what I am supposed to focus on. So to begin with, there is very little direct response that Pakistan gave to Quad. Shah Mahmood Qureshi, who was previously the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, when he was asked, he responded that Pakistan is looking at Quad with interest, meaning that we are keeping an eye on this developing phenomenon, and we would only be in a position to give a more proper response once Quad became operational in the sense in which then we could either understand it as a military alliance or some form of multilateral diplomacy. However, Pakistan does have concerns, as Hilali Sahab pointed out, over Indian ascendancy in naval warfare in the Indian Ocean region. So the idea is that if India is able to cooperate and receive assistance from these other very powerful states, it would undermine Pakistan's naval position in the Indian Ocean region. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs also pointed out that the United States, by engaging in Quad, by engaging in this sort of alliance building, is undermining strategic stability in South Asia, meaning that the conventional strategic stability that has been achieved, United States, Pakistan views this as an aggressive design where India has been propped up not only to undermine the Chinese interest but also to undermine Pakistan's interest. So what implications would this have for Pakistan? To answer this question, the first thing we need to understand is, or the first thing that we need to keep an eye on is what is the nature and the direction of the cooperation between the Quad members. So some scholars have pointed out that it might turn into a hard Quad, meaning that there might be a closer strategic and military cooperation between these countries. If it does turn into a hard Quad, in that case, it might have more severe consequences for Pakistan as opposed to if it remains a soft Quad, in which case it only remains, like I said, limited to the lower level military cooperation, which I don't think would pose as major issues for Pakistan. So the first implication, if it indeed does become a hard Quad, would be Indian naval power and asymmetry with Pakistan, meaning that obviously India would benefit from, like I said in the beginning, closer assistance with these more developed naval powers, and therefore India might achieve ascendancy over Pakistan in the naval warfare. It might also test Pakistan's friendship with China, because Pakistan, as we can see right now, because of our own economic issues, still remains dependent on foreign aid and assistance and loans from countries and institutions that are more closely associated with the Western world. Pakistan expects, for example, assistance from the IMF. Pakistan has been receiving assistance from the United States of America. So if there is a talk of a new Cold War in the Indo-Pacific region, this might actually test Pakistan's friendship with China, and something that Pakistan has to strategize for. This might also result in the Indian attempts to isolate Pakistan. So I mentioned the Milan exercises that took place in Visakhapatnam in India, where not only the Quad members participated, but all the members of South Asia, all the South Asian countries participated except Pakistan, which was a clear indication that if an arrangement like this becomes successful, India would use it to try to isolate Pakistan from the rest of the region. And like I said, if this turns into a long-term strategic rivalry, I mentioned Cold War in the beginning, if this becomes something of a Cold War, as Chinese have already called this the Asian NATO, which is something that when we talk about it, we imagine a situation where there are military alliances, and if that situation arises, that might push Pakistan into the Chinese sphere of influence, and Pakistan then might have to decide more clearly between where it wants to go, whether Pakistan, because neutrality might not remain a viable option for Pakistan. If this does become, like I said, a hard Quad where it turns into, like I said in the beginning, a Cold War or even a hot war between China and the United States of America. So here are a few points on what Pakistan needs to do, or what Pakistan's choices are. One, inevitably, I think Pakistan, as I said in the previous slide, Pakistan will move further into the Chinese sphere of influence. And the reason for this is two-pronged. One, the Chinese have had more closer cooperation with Pakistan, more long-term cooperation with Pakistan in areas, for example, on CPAC, than Pakistan does with the United States of America. The other reason is that since the fall of Kabul to the Taliban, we've seen that the American priority has also shifted from Pakistan. So this might, like I said, push Pakistan squarely into the Chinese sphere of influence. But at the same time, my sense is that Pakistan should, for as long as this remains a soft Quad, Pakistan should maintain bilateral relations with Quad and Quad plus countries, and should not allow the military exercises or any such activities between India and these other countries to isolate Pakistan from these important countries that are members of Quad and those that are maybe going to become members of Quad in the or any other arrangement that Quad might result in the future. Pakistan can, if it becomes a hard Quad, Pakistan can also work on regional multilateral alliances, and there are a number of countries that are very important regional states that currently have their own issues with the United States of America, and even in some cases with India. For example, China, Russia, Iran, and Central Asian republics. So the Russia organized the Kafkas, which is basically Caucasus, military exercises in 2020, and Pakistan was one of the countries that participated in these military exercises, which is one way of responding to this. At the same time, Pakistan can also have more closer cooperation with regional organizations where China has a larger say, for example, the ASEAN and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So I'll stop here. If there are any questions, I'll take it.
Thank you, Dr. Amir Raza. Now we have the third speaker, Mr. Sufyanullah. Sufyanullah is a research officer, Center for International Strategic Studies, Islamabad. Sufyanullah is a PhD candidate at the Department of Defense and Strategic Studies, Quaid-e-Azam University, Islamabad. He teaches at as a visiting faculty at the International Relations Department, National University of Modern Languages, Islamabad. He holds an MPhil degree in Strategic and Nuclear Studies from the National Defense University, Islamabad. He is a former visiting fellow at the Center for Non-Proliferation Studies, California. He frequently writes on issues including nuclear strategy, arms control, strategic stability in South Asia, maritime security in the Indian Ocean region, with particular emphasis on emerging dynamics of sea-based nuclear deterrence in South Asia. Mr. Sukhandar, please.
Good luck.
Ladies and gentlemen, very senior faculty members and dear students, Assalamu alaikum, and very good morning as well. I do not have a formal presentation. I'll use my script to deliver my remarks, but given that the earlier two speakers have set a very good stage for all of us to understand and comprehend the subject, I think they have made my job easier to share my views and not explaining the key concepts and some of the geostrategic similarities that we have unfolded in the Asian region at the moment. I am going to talk about India's naval strategy and how it may implicate the regional security architecture. Let me start with the premise that I personally see Indian naval strategy from a geopolitical context, and I believe that this strategy aims to complement India's broader foreign policy agenda and aspirations. So my talk focuses on how India's assertive naval strategy contributes to its foreign policy considerations. While India remained a reluctant power for many decades, it has adopted an assertive foreign policy in the 21st century. And as similar to the theory of securitization, those of you who have studied Bell-Guzan would understand it, that US and its allies use Beijing as a referent object to securitize China's rise, construct a China threat theory by projecting it as a revisionist power, and develop counter strategies which we often see in the form of growing military cooperation and alliances. And as Dr. Amirza talked about the Quad, I'm not going to about that alliance. Now, in the midst of growing Sino-US competition, India finds a moment of strategic opportunity to which it wants to respond by becoming a major power that is capable to counter the international system. Nevertheless, the key question remains whether India behaves like a defensive power that is satisfied with the status quo, or an ambitious state that prefers expansion of power to be a hegemon in the Indian Ocean region. I personally think that while India has yet not been pursuing anti-system strategies by demonstrating a classical revisionist behavior, but it aspires key changes within the system to increase its bargaining ability. And this is a very good research question for all the students of international relations, that how can a state ally with the status quo power, yet it pursues revisionist agendas. The reason I say that it is a revisionist power or it pursues a revisionist agenda, I think it is demonstrated by 5 key trends. First, India's diplomatic rhetoric, particularly towards the regional states in the form of minimized engagement through SAARC. And as Dr. Saab mentioned that it wants to isolate Pakistan. Secondly, a retreat from multilateralism and adopting the policy of exclusive minilateralism to develop an architecture that involves only its strategic partners. And I think this approach is inherently contradictory to the principles upon which the liberal international order has been established. Third, the urge to seek strategic supremacy over its nuclear adversaries. Though it's not a forum to talk about that, but just a brief overview that India has the capability to produce more than 2,000 nuclear weapons in a year. And it continues to challenge Pakistan's resolve and its resolve to ensure its territorial sovereignty and integrity. Fourth, the willingness to initiate and escalate military crises is, as it was demonstrated in February 2019 crisis with Pakistan. After the so-called Pulwama attack, India conducted so-called a failed surgical strike and resist strike. And lastly, restructuring the composition of United Nations Security Council to attain veto power status that would allow it to shape political consensus on key international issues. So in this regard, an ambitious naval strategy complements to these trends. So my key argument is that India's naval posture is gradually shifting from defense to preeminence with an intent to exert influence far from its shores. But how has India's maritime strategy developed over the years? And as Dr. Hilali mentioned in his presentation, that how India's Indian Ocean's name has been a moot point and has been a point of debate for several years. India very jealously guards the terminology. It just says that we cannot accept any other term except Indian Ocean. And if I may brief a little about India's early maritime thinkers, including Panikkar and Vidya, they emphasized that developing advanced naval capabilities and proposed that Indian Ocean should remain truly Indian. And they also asserted that Indian Ocean must become an Indian lake. Interestingly, it's a quite interesting fact that in late 60s and early 70s, the American diplomats used to criticize this approach in their private discussions with the Indian leadership. And those are now very well referenced to in several books and articles. But today, now US needs India in its containment strategy against China. United States does not oppose the approach, and it welcomes that Indian Ocean might become an Indian lake. So this terminology lays the basis for hegemonic tendencies that were to shape India's regional aspirations in the years to come. Thus, the emphasis, along with Mahan's thinking, inculcated the thinking of forward presence in Indian Navy's mindset, and also influenced how it approached relations with the neighboring states. Now, how are these objectives being achieved? And what strategies does India adopt to pursue them? I think we need to identify different prongs of naval strategy and how they synergistically work to promote the desired objectives of India. So in my opinion, Indian naval strategy has 5 different prongs. 1, the naval modernization. 2, constructing a new regional identity as an Indo-Pacific region. 3rd, emergence of Quad and being a part of Quad as a security alliance. 4th, projecting India as a net security provider in the Indian Ocean region. And lastly, development of sea-based nuclear forces. And I shall briefly talk about these 5 prongs. First, naval modernization. The Maritime Capability Perspective Plan of India that they developed for 15 years, it says that India shall operate a fleet of more than 197 warships by 2027, in just 5 years' time. This includes development of fleet of 28 submarines. Currently they have 16 submarines, 14 conventional submarines, 1 nuclear ballistic missile submarines, and 1 nuclear attack submarine that they have acquired on lease from Russia. They plan to produce 28 submarines, both conventional and nuclear. India already possesses 1 nuclear attack submarine INS Chakra, leased from Russia, while 6 more nuclear attack submarines are to be built indigenously. And India also plans to operate a fleet of 5 to 6 nuclear ballistic missile submarines. Now just imagine 5 to 6 ballistic missile submarines, what does that mean? The current Indian SSB and INS Arihant has the capability to deploy as many as 8 to 12 nuclear capable ballistic missiles, submarine launched ballistic missiles. So if they operate 6 ballistic missile submarines, how many weapons shall they deploy in the Indonesian region? And interestingly, as Pakistan proposed to India in 1970s, that let's not develop nuclear weapons and let's declare this region as a nuclear weapon-free zone. India did not agree to it. And in terms of Indian Ocean region, Pakistan 2 decades ago again proposed that let's declare Indian Ocean region as a nuclear weapon-free zone and let's agree not to deploy nuclear weapons in the Indian Ocean region. However, India again did not agree to it. So, considering these designs, an arms race is just at the door. Then India has plans to produce a fleet of 3 aircraft carriers, and those who understand naval strategy would appreciate that an aircraft carrier operates with a huge fleet as a carrier battle group. So and they also serve as an artificial kind of island in the ocean. If you have deployed an aircraft carrier in the ocean, it means that you can ensure sustained presence very far from your own coast. So if they operate 3 aircraft carriers, it shall help them to project their naval power beyond Indian Ocean region, not just in Indian Ocean region. Then they can use that power to deter and as well as to intimidate other smaller regional states, including Pakistan and other states that challenge India's ambitions. And lastly, impose sea control on the sea lines of communication, as mentioned by Dr. Hilali in his presentation. So formidable naval force would enable India to control all these sea lines of communication passing through the Indian Ocean, and its strength shall outweigh total number of naval units of all littoral states in the Indian Ocean region. So it's not talking about just Pakistan. Just compare it with all the other littoral states. There is one state on one side and all the other states will not have an equivalent military capability in the naval domain.
The second prong is the construct of Indo-Pacific as a new region. Let me just share a brief view of how I see that why first US has changed the Asia-Pacific construct into an Indo-Pacific. Initially, all of you are the students are somewhere related to the international relations, you would be region. And it has been made as one region, a strategic system, one strategic system. Why we call it a strategic system? Because it is a kind of region where any development in any part of the region shall influence and affect the other parts of this particular region. Asia-Pacific, this construct helped US to contain USSR during the Cold War. Now the theater of that competition has shifted from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. Now they need to contain China. Their deployments were mostly Atlantic based. But under this Indo-Pacific strategy, US wants to deploy 60%, more than 60% of its naval assets in the Indo-Pacific region, not in the Atlantic Ocean. So it's not just that change of terminology, it is complemented by the allocation of resources and deployment of the resources. So this is okay from the US point. What does have India in it? Why does India actively borrow this idea? So I think from Indian perspective, why does India promote this idea of Indo-Pacific region? Is because that this concept aims to legitimize its security role in both Indian and the Pacific Oceans. Successive US administrations have viewed India as a key player to hedge against China's rise. Engagement under this framework allows India to acquire new military technologies from the US. Like few examples include the P-8I aircraft and attack helicopters for maritime surveillance and anti-submarine warfare. The Indian Maritime Doctrine, the official document that they have released, it divides Indo-Pacific region into areas of primary and secondary areas of interest. The water bodies of India's coast, including the Arabian Sea, a body that we are concerned with along the coast of Pakistan, and the Bay of Bengal, these two seas constitute as the areas of primary interest, while the extended regions or the secondary area of interest include the regions in the Pacific Ocean, especially the South China Sea. So I think a terminology that replaces Asia, which represents a whole continent, with the word Indo, it magnifies India's stature from a meager South Asian power to a growing world power. So India is already working on enhancing engagement with states around South China Sea. Now I'm talking about beyond Indian Ocean. Joint military exercises with Singapore, friendly port calls with countries like Brunei, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, etc. Vietnam also bringing Indian Navy into these distant and disputed waters. India has established deep water maritime facility in Campbell Bay. The name is INS Baz, Indian Naval Ship Baz, which is most southerly point of Andaman Islands. So this facility allows India to conduct surveillance operations over South China Sea. So this way it is projecting that India is ready to play that role of buck catcher. I hope you have understood, you have studied these concepts, the balance of power in buck catcher and buck passer. So India is ready to play the role of buck catcher and play the proxy role for the United States in its efforts to contain China's rise. Which is why I think the use of Indo-Pacific region construct goes beyond the mere use of terminology and is manifested in the deployment of naval assets and India's naval cooperation with other states. The third prong is to be a part of Quad. Prime Minister gave you a very holistic and comprehensive overview that what are the traditional or non-traditional dimensions of this security dialogue and what could be the hard element of this security dialogue. I am focusing on this hard Quad, as he said, hard Quad, hard element. There has been paradigm shift in India's engagement with extra-regional powers as it has entered into new strategic partnership like the Coordinated Security Alliance. This Quad actually thrives upon China threat theory to justify their growing security relationships. And as Dr. Amir Raza mentioned that China is concerned about Quad and they call it an Asian NATO. Why do Chinese call Quad an Asian NATO? I wish I could show you a map. Just imagine where China is situated. In East China Sea we have Japan. In the most southerly part you have Australia. In South China Sea you have India. So you are actually engulfing China. China is already concerned about the deployment of ballistic missile defense systems in the Pacific Ocean by the United States. The kind of agreements that it has with South Korea and Japan. Because China thinks that those ballistic missile defense systems shall deprive China of its retaliatory capability in case it is attacked by the United States. Now, after the Quad alliance is established, it is actually encircling China from these sides. So this is the primary concern for China. The notions like free and open Indo-Pacific region and rules-based order inherently carry an anti-China orientation and only promote selective imposition of certain rules for a favorable regional order. This strategy seeks to contain rising China from different sides and relates to constructivist explanation about why and how India and other like-minded states project negative impression of China's rise to pursue desirable security architecture. So being a part of Quad, on the empirical side, India has already been able to get quite a things. I will briefly mention 4 foundational agreements that it has signed with the United States. First is Logistic Exchange Memorandum of Agreement. It allows India and United States to use each other's ports. So now just imagine the extent of reach that India shall have in the Pacific Ocean and the extent of reach United States shall have in the Indian Ocean. And the 2 speakers earlier mentioned that US itself at the moment is not fully capable to play all of the containment role against China on its own. So it needs allies, it needs partners who can play that role. So agreeing into that agreement, limo kind of agreement, it allows US to pursue that agenda. Another agreement is Communications Compatibility and Security Agreement. Most important is the third one, BECA, Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement. And lastly, General Security of Military Information Agreement. All these agreements contribute to that hard character of war, because this allows India to use American softwares, American hardwares, and the agreements also provide for possible sharing of geospatial intelligence by the US military. Just imagine that US shares some information about sensitive facilities of China to India, and then it shall be quite easier for India's unmanned drones for hypersonic missiles to precisely target facilities. So which is why the countries like Pakistan, China and few other states are concerned about this aspect. Advanced warfare capabilities directly undermine military balance in the region, provide strategic advantage to India during potential crises with adversaries, and also allow it to project sea power in its immediate neighborhood. Similarly, establishing naval bases for forward deployment is also a significant component of New Delhi's naval strategy. It is constructing a naval base in Seychelles. Because of its strategic importance, it shall allow it to monitor slopes and support naval operations by technologies like coastal radar systems. The fourth prong of strategy is projecting India as a net security provider. It's a buzz and has grown louder in official and academic discourse in last decade, but the lack of consensus on its meaning keeps it open to different interpretations. Simplistically speaking, it implies that a country is capable to pursue its own interests as well as provide security assistance to other states in the region. This assistance is provided in terms of capacity building, military diplomacy, military assistance, and direct deployment of forces if and when required. So recognizing the fact that US has limited capabilities to engage at both Pacific and Indian Oceans, it retains a dominance in the Pacific and aims to outsource the security role to India by making it a net security provider in the Indian Ocean region. So to balance China's increasing influence is thus the shared objective of 2 states. And the last prong is the development of sea-based nuclear forces. Ms. Ayusha Khan is scheduled to speak on this subject in the next session. I shall not say much on this subject, but I shall only say a few words on it, that a sea-based nuclear force is generally considered as the most potent tool to ensure second strike capability, which means that this capability should be used only for deterrence purposes. You shall not use this capability in first strike or to intimidate your adversary. My understanding of this aspect is that India is developing this sea-based nuclear force in an offensive role and to conduct this counter-force target action. Mr. Ayusha shall talk more about it in this in detail, and I shall be here inshallah to answer your questions if you have any. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Subhanallah. Now we have an opportunity for students as well. I hope you understand it's a question answer session. We will be taking few questions. It will be for 10 to 15 minutes. So kindly debrief in your question and introduce yourself and your affiliation while asking questions. So any question is welcome. Please also mention that you are addressing your question.
थैंक यू। और मेरा नाम शाहिद सैद है और डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ पॉलिटिकल साइंस यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ पेशावर का स्टूडेंट हूँ। मेरा क्वेश्चन सर आमिर रजा से है। सर पहला क्वेश्चन ये है कि वार में फ्रांस क्यों शामिल है, क्योंकि फ्रांस उसमें इंक्लूड नहीं है, क्योंकि बेटा एग्रीमेंट हुआ था उसमें था लेकिन इसमें नहीं है। और दूसरा क्वेश्चन ये कि क्वाड की चाइना इंडिया रिलेशन पर क्या असर पड़ सकते हैं या सो फार क्या असर पड़ेंगे इस पर?
जी थैंक यू वेरी मच। एक तो जैसे मैंने शुरू में कहा कि क्वाड जो है इट्स एन इमर्जिंग फिनोमेना। देयर हैव बीन वेरियस फेजेस जिसके ज़रिए से वो जा रहा है। तो फ्रांस जैसे बिलाली साहब ने भी उससे पहले बताया कि फ्रांस वाज वेरी मच पार्ट ऑफ दैट व्हाट यू माइट कॉल that group of countries that had apprehensions regarding the rise of China. And I also mentioned that there is a phenomenon that is called Quad Plus, meaning that Quad is not, at least the idea is that it is not going to remain limited to the countries that are currently members of Quad. But right now, because these countries, I think as Sufyan Saab mentioned, the three countries in the region plus the United States of America, they are more imminently interested in undermining China. I think European Union in general, in France including, I don't think its threat perception is as imminent towards China as I think these other countries' threat perception is. And what was the other question you said? I think that's primarily what Quad is about. I think that's what everyone spoke about, basically. That India believes that it can only play a regional and global role if it is able to at least compete effectively with the People's Republic of China. If it is able to compete effectively with China, it already gives India that position where then it would be seen as a global and regional power. And I think the reason India has entered Quad, I don't think is primarily for Pakistan. I think it is primarily, as Sufyan Saab pointed out, it is to challenge China's rise rather than Pakistan's position.
I will also add something with reference to as Dr. Omar mentioned. Faisal, basically you mean the Quad, it's based on Asia Pacific. Right, it's nothing to do at the moment. America is working at the back guardians for these countries and supporting the main idea of the encirclement of China. The main target of all countries are the China. Japan need to counter China, India need to counter China, US need to counter China. So they are taking a system from the other countries, whoever wants to be coming. Pakistan, vice versa, because very much present in the South Asia and don't need any a political or strategic advantage that India has to take in the region. So Pakistan, by virtue of the China backing or playing the role as a bully of the China and countering one reason to another reason, India should not take any more advantage in the region. So it's basically Asia Pacific region centric idea. And we have to stay there. So but Pakistan needed some involvement. Might be China will become out and they will push Pakistan and Pakistan have to become forward. Right? So that is Asia Pacific basically. I wish East Pakistan should be the part of the Pakistan mainland. Then it means certainly Southeast Asia will be very much under our strategy. But it's Asia Pacific basically.
My compliments. I think it was a very good question which has compared all the three speakers to speak on it. I shall respond to your point about why France is not a part of BECA. I think BECA is a kind of bilateral agreement, and US has this agreement with more than 50 countries. So the kind of agreement they have France is with is bilateral arrangement. Whenever it comes to a multilateral engagement, France is always very, very cautious when it interacts or collaborates with the United States. First example, NATO. In the history, why it came out of NATO? Because it wanted to pursue strategic autonomy and independent nuclear policy. And secondly, in recent time, the AUKUS deal that you must have heard about, France had an agreement with Australia about the provision of nuclear attack submarines. But the United States intervened and compelled Australia to cancel that deal and rather asked it to borrow those submarines from England. It actually raised so much concerns in France that why US is doing it. See, why I'm quoting is that it reflects the kind of relationship that France has with the United States. When it comes to the Quad, I don't think France has a very favorable opinion about China's rise, but again, it is very cautious when it comes to joining the United States in steps against China. So they want to pursue their independent policy. They do not want to come to the forefront in that much intensity as other states have agreed.
Next question. Anyone from this side?
मेरा नाम मोहम्मद उस्मान है और मैं डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ पॉलिटिकल साइंस यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ पेशावर का तालिब इल्म हूँ। मेरा सवाल डॉक्टर आमिर रज़ा साहब से है कि एक तो पाकिस्तान डायलॉग से के ज़रिए एक तो पाकिस्तान डायलॉग के ज़रिए से क्वाड से ताल्लुकात बेहतर बना सकता है, लेकिन दूसरी तरफ देखा जाए कि पाकिस्तान ने क्या ये कोशिश की है कि क्वाड के मुकाबले में कि एक और सिक्योरिटी एनहांसमेंट। दूसरा सवाल मेरा सुफियान सर से कि अगर पाकिस्तान किसी वजह से क्वाड का हिस्सा बनती है या उसके साथ ताल्लुकात बेहतर बनाती है तो पाक चाइना रिलेशन पर इसके क्या असर होंगे?
आमिर रज़ा से
जी आवाज़
आ रही है।
अब सही हो जी। एक तो जैसे आपने कहा कि हम बायलैटरल इंगेज कर सकते हैं, वो बात भी होगी। दूसरा, मैंने उस दौरान में मेंशन किया था, इफ यू रिमेंबर, कि देयर आर डिफरेंट कंट्रीज दैट रियलाइज कि ये जो इस तरह की अरेंजमेंट्स बन रही हैं, जैसे ऑकस का जिक्र हुआ या क्वाड का जिक्र हुआ, ये इस रीजन में कुछ मुल्कों को ज़्यादा स्ट्रेंथन करेंगी, स्पेशली यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स का जो इन्फ्लुएंस है वो ज़्यादा स्ट्रेंथन होगा। तो उसके अगेंस्ट ऑलरेडी देयर इज़ अ सेंस। फॉर एग्जांपल, अब जो अफगानिस्तान में जो सिचुएशन बनी, तो इन रीजनल ममालिक ने अपना एक मॉनिटरिंग ग्रुप भी बनाया टू एंगेज विद तालिबान। 10 मुल्कों ने कॉन्फ्रेंस भी की मॉस्को में। उसका भी यानी सेंस ये था कि हमने यहाँ पे अगर वैक्यूम बनता है तो उसको हमने यहाँ पे मल्टीलैटरली रीजनली फिल करना है, और अगर हमें कम्पीट करना पड़ता है विद यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स अमेरिका कुछ मुल्कों के हवाले से, क्योंकि उन 10 मुल्कों में तो इंडिया भी शामिल था जो तालिबान के साथ जो इंगेज कर रहे, तो वो भी फिर जैसे मैंने अभी वो एक्सरसाइजेस का जिक्र किया जो कि मॉस्को ने बाय एंड लार्ज उन्होंने स्पॉन्सर की थी, जिसमें पाकिस्तान ने भी पार्टिसिपेट किया। तो यहाँ पे एक सेंस है। आई डोंट थिंक कि पाकिस्तान इन इटसेल्फ इस पोजीशन में है कि इस तरह की किसी अरेंजमेंट को स्पीयर हेड कर सके, लेकिन मेरे ख्याल में अगर जैसे सुफियान साहब ने भी कहा कि हम इस असम्पशन पे चल रहे हैं कि ये हार्ड कोर बनता है, तो अगर इस तरह से बनता है तो फिर इवेंचुअली पाकिस्तान कोई क्लियर कट पोजीशन लेगा और इस तरह की किसी अलाइंस जो है वो शायद जब वो बने तो उसमें पाकिस्तान भी शामिल हो जाए।
थैंक यू। पहले थोड़ा सा हम अंडरस्टैंड करते हैं कि क्वाड लार्जर इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस में है क्या। वन वर्ड में इसके एक्सप्लेनेशन देता हूँ कि दो सुपर पावर्स हैं, कम्पीट कर रही हैं, चाइना और यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स। दोनों की मॉडल्स क्या है? एक तरफ मॉडल है DRI का जो कि इकोनॉमिक इंटरडिपेंडेंस की बात कर रहा है, और दूसरी तरफ मॉडल है क्वाड का जो कि इंटरऑपरेबिलिटी या इंटीग्रेटेड डिटेरेंस की बात है। सो पाकिस्तान हैज टू चूज वेरी केयरफुली कि हमने किसका पार्ट बनना है, पहला। दूसरा, आई डोंट थिंक के कंट्रीज के क्वाड को ज्वाइन करने से पाकिस्तान शुड बी ग्रेटली कंसर्न। पाकिस्तान का जो सबसे बड़ा कंसर्न है वो ये है कि इस सुपर पावर राइवलरी की जो रीजनल इम्प्लीकेशंस हैं उनको इग्नोर ना करें। सो पाकिस्तान इज नॉट वेरी मच कंसर्न कि यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स के स्टेट बी के साथ कैसे ताल्लुकात है या सी के साथ कैसे ताल्लुकात है या डी के साथ कैसे ताल्लुकात है। पाकिस्तान का कंसर्न ये है कि यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स जब कोई ऐसी मिलिट्री टेक्नोलॉजी इंडिया को प्रोवाइड करता है जो कि वो अगेंस्ट पाकिस्तान यूज़ हो सकती है then it is a matter of great concern. I personally think कि Quad की expansion जो है वो in terms of interoperability in this region होती है तो we are concerned. अगर वो अटलांटिक में भी चला जाता है या पैसिफिक में 6-7 स्टेट्स हो जाती हैं तो we should not be very concerned.
With the permission of the chair, उस्मान साहब, मैं इसमें 2-3 चीज़ें आपको बता दूं. जो चाइना ने पाकिस्तान की बड़ी हेल्प की है, फ्रांस चुके गेज है, और फ्रांस ने बड़ा ब्यूटीफुली पाकिस्तान को एम्पावर किया है इस नेवल कैपेबिलिटी में. एग्जॉस्ट मिसाइल भी दिए हैं, अगस्टा 19 सबमरीन्स भी दिए हैं, बल्कि चाइना तो फाइनेंशियली पाकिस्तान को बैकअप किया जर्मनी से कन्वेंशनल सबमरीन्स लेने के लिए. तो पाकिस्तान के बाद इंडिया को काउंटर करने के लिए 19 सबमरीन का बहुत बड़ा एक बेड़ा है, और पाकिस्तान के पास यही कैपेबिलिटी है जिससे वो इंडिया को बड़ा ब्यूटीफुली वो काउंटर करता है. दूसरी मेरी ये है कि क्वाड जिस डायमेंशन भी जाए, एक तो मैंने कहा कि वो एशिया पैसिफिक है, आप साउथ एशिया में हैं, तो खुदा के वास्ते आप इतना दूर के ना सोचें, आप अपने आप को संभालने बड़ी मेहरबानी है, और जिस हालात से आप जा रहे हैं उसको अगर मैनेज कर लें वही बड़ी बात होती है. स्ट्रेटजिकली आप जहाँ भी सोच रहे हैं और जिस अंदाज से भी सोच रहे हैं, दैट इज़ वेरी ग्लोबल आइडिया होना चाहिए, लेकिन मेरा ख्याल है कि पाकिस्तान जितना पॉलिटिकली अपने आप को स्टेबल करेगा उतना ज़्यादा मिलिटरीली स्ट्रेंथन हो जाएगा. तो थैंक यू सो मच.
Thank you, Dr. Gilani. Please.
जो क्वेश्चन आपको पूछा है कुछ तो हिलाली साहब ने एग्जैक्टली आपको आंसर कर दिया. We have this paranoia that जो कुछ भी दुनिया में हो रहा है तो हमारा उसका जरूर उसका कोई काउंटर होना चाहिए. हर जगह पर हम पहुंच जाए ना कि हाँ जी हम मौजूद हैं और इसका काउंटर होना चाहिए. कोई जरूरत नहीं है इस मामले में. सबसे पहले तो जितनी चादर उतने पाँव फैलाएं. आप ये देखिए कि हम इस काबिल हैं भी कि नहीं. It's very important. We need to understand and realize ourselves and our importance. तो एक बात. दूसरी बात, आपने अभी जो पूछा है ना सवाल कि इसका काउंटर क्या होना चाहिए, ये पता कराइए. ये बताते खुद तो कोई काउंटर नहीं है आपका. आप पहले कुछ कर चुके हैं और फिर क्वाड बना है. तो अगर ये आपकी किसी एक्शन का जवाब है तो फिर तो मतलब यू शुड बी प्राउड ऑफ योरसेल्फ. और वो तीनों स्पीकर्स, तीनों जो भी कमेंटेटर्स हैं, तीनों ने बता दिया कि VRI का जो प्रोजेक्ट है वो इतना खतरनाक और लीथल अमेरिका के लिए साबित हो रहा है कि अब वो हाथ पैर मार रहा है कि कहीं से कुछ भी करो लेकिन इसको काउंटर किया जाए. तो probably this is counter action rather than हम इसके मुकाबले में कुछ करें. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Solvardi. I'll encourage female students as well to ask questions. Please. From any side.
कसम खाए बैठी है क्यों नहीं हमने नहीं पूछ लो कुछ.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Dr. Iftihar Ahmed Sazai. My question is from Sufyan Saab, that we know that the United States is increasing its build-up in the Indian Ocean region as well as in the Pacific region. During the Cold War, it was in our interest if there was any increase in the US presence, but now the situation is quite changed. As we know that there is a consensus and rather a sort of axis between the United States and India. Now Russia and China, they are countering the presence of the United States in the Indian Ocean and in the Pacific region. But China and Russia, they have access only to the Pacific region. To the Indian Ocean region, they don't have any direct access. But if Pakistan wants, it can give access through the CPEC region or through Gwadar region. Whether it will be in the strategic interest of the United States to give access to Russia and China to the Indian Ocean to Sufyan Saab.
Last point आप अपना repeat करें.
My last point is to give military and naval access through Gwadar port or through this CPEC region to Russia and China. Whether it will be in the strategic interests of Pakistan to do so or to allow Russia and China.
I only have a short response.
پہلے تو یہ بات سمجھنا ضروری ہے کہ for any super power, access to 2 oceans is a great blessing. اس کو کسی سپر پاور بننے کے لیے 2 oceans کو ایکسیس ہوتی ہے. چائنا wants access, it has multiple options. پاکستان جو اس کو ایکسیس دے رہا ہے تھرو سی پیک وہ کمپلیٹلی اکنامک نیچر کی ہے. ایک اس بات کو کہنے سمجھیں دیٹ از ناٹ ان ملٹری. سر ہم سے کہ سپر پاور کے لیے ضروری ہے کہ وہ ناٹ ضروری بٹ اٹس اے گریٹ بلیسنگ اف اٹ ہیز ایکسیس ٹو 2 oceans. So China also wants to have direct access to Indian Ocean. But یہ تھوڑی سی myth ہے کہ پاکستان has given China military access to Indian Ocean through sea. اور اکثر اس کو لنک کیا جاتا ہے کہ نیوکلیئر کے ساتھ بھی کہ جی بارڈر پہ تو چائنیز ڈپلائڈس سبمرینز اور اس طرح سے. اب پاکستان کے نیریٹو پہ یقین کریں نہ کریں چائنیز پالیسی پہلے دیکھیں ان ٹرمز آف نیوکلیئر کی بات کر رہا ہوں. دے ہیو ویری کلیئر کٹ پالیسی ایز ویل ایز ڈیکیڈز لانگ practice that they never deploy their nuclear weapons outside their country. Non-proliferation regime کے اندر ان کا جو US کے ساتھ سب سے بڑا اختلاف ہے وہ یہی ہے کہ آپ دوسرے کنٹریز کو ایکسٹینڈیڈ ڈیٹینس پرووائڈ کرتے ہیں, آپ دوسرے کنٹریز میں بیسز بنا کے چھوٹے کنٹریز کو ملائن کرتے ہیں یا انٹیمیڈیٹ کرتے ہیں. تو چائنا کی اپنی پالیسی یہ نہیں ہے. اور پاکستان آئی تھنک ویری کیئرفلی اینڈ کاشیسلی چوز ون آؤٹ آف دوز آپشنز جس کی ہم پہلے بات کر رہے تھے اکنامک انٹیگریشن کی. اس کی کاسٹ آئے گی, کاسٹ ہم فیس کر رہے ہیں. اور جو امریکہ کی انکریزنگ پریزنس ہے اس کا میں تھوڑا ذکر کروں انڈین اوشن کے. پاکستان از ناٹ کنسرن ود امریکن پریزنس ان انڈین اوشن. ہمیں اس سے آئی ڈونٹ تھنک کہ کوئی کنسرن ہونا چاہیے. وی ہیو بین اے ویری کی اسٹریٹجک پارٹنر آف یونائٹیڈ اسٹیٹس فار مینی ایئرس. میں ریپیٹ کروں گا جو میں نے پہلے بات کی تھی, وی آر اونلی کنسرن جب یہ پریزنس یا یہ کوآپریشن آپ انڈیا کو اس مینر میں دیں کہ وہ ہمارے اگینسٹ یوز ہو. I think that's my answer to the question.
تو آئی ایم سوری ڈاکٹر صاحب, بڑا مزیدار انہوں نے سوال کیا ڈاکٹر افتخار صاحب نے. ڈاکٹر صاحب یہ ذہن میں رکھیں کہ آپ کہہ رہے ہیں کہ رشیا کو ایکسیس دیں. رشیا کے جانے پہ ہم ایک پرائم منسٹر دے چکے ہیں. اب مزید کوئی ہمیں اتنی کوئی چیزیں نہیں ہیں کہ ہم ڈائجسٹ کر سکیں یا دے سکیں. تو میرا خیال ہے کہ ہم اپنی باؤنڈری میں رہ کے اپنی اسکن میں رہ کے اگر انڈیا کو کاؤنٹر کریں کہ دیٹ ول مین بیسٹ اسٹریٹجی اور بیسٹ اینگل اینڈ بیسٹ پولیٹیکل موو فار اس. تو پلیز کوئی بھی انالیسس سے پہلے آپ کوشش کریں کہ اپنی باؤنڈری سے باہر نہ جائیں اور اس کو اسٹیبلائز کریں, اسٹرینتھن کریں. پھر اس میں جو بھی ریجنل یا گلوبل رول بنتا ہو اس کے مطابق یو کین بی موو آؤٹ. تھینک یو سو مچ.
Thank you, Dr. Tilali. We will take the last question of this session.
السلام علیکم. مائی کوشچن از فرام سر سفیان. میرا نام سمیع اللہ ہے, ڈپارٹمنٹ آف پولیٹیکل سائنس سیکنڈ سیمسٹر. سر میرا کوشچن یہ ہے کہ جو ہم دیکھ رہے ہیں آج کل, اور ہم نے پاس میں بھی دیکھے یو ایس کو دیکھا ہے اور چائنا کو دیکھے, یو اے ای اور فرانس جرمنی کے پالیسیز کو دیکھے, وہ جیو پولیٹیکل سے جیو اکنامک کی طرف جا رہے ہیں اور یہی فیوچر میں پاکستان بھی اسی طرف جانے کی کوشش کر رہا ہے. تو اگر انڈیا بیلسٹک میزائلز بنا رہے تو اس سے ہمیں کیا اس کا وہ کرنا چاہیے, ہمارا اس کی طرف کیا اپروچ ہونا چاہیے. اور دوسرا یہ کہ جو انڈیا ہے ہمارا ان کے ساتھ جیوگرافیکلی بھی اگر ہم دیکھیں تو ہم ان کو ٹکر نہیں دے سکتے, تو ہمیں ان کو کیسے ڈیل کرنا چاہیے, ہمیں ان کے ساتھ کوپریشن کرنی چاہیے یا اسی طرح رکھنا چاہیے. تھینک یو.
اب یہ ایک بات میں بہت ساری باتیں تھیں, میں شارٹ آنسر اس کا ہی کروں گا. پہلی بات آپ نے کی جو اکنامک شفٹ کی طرف, تو پاکستان کی جو موسٹ ریسنٹ سیکورٹی پالیسی ریلیز ہوئی تھی پچھلی گورنمنٹ کے ٹرم میں, پاکستان نیشنل سیکورٹی پالیسی اب آفیشیل ریلیز بھی کیا, اس کے اندر ہم نے اسی فوکس کو, ہم سے بڑا پاکستان نے اسی پہ فوکس کیا تھا کہ وی آر شفٹنگ ٹورڈز جیو اکانومی, اور ہم جیو اکنامکس کو پراپر امپورٹنس دیں گے. سو آئی تھنک اٹس اے پازیٹیو موو, اٹس اے پازیٹیو ٹرینڈ, آلدو اس کا افیکٹ اور آؤٹ کم آنے میں ہمیں تھوڑا ٹائم لگے گا, دیر لگے گا. دوسری بات جو ہم اکثر بریڈ ورسز گن یا بٹر ورسز گن ڈبیٹ ہے نا اس کے اندر چلے جاتے ہیں, جو کہ بہت ضروری بھی ہے جیو اکنامک انالیسز یا پولیٹیکل اکانومی کے پوائنٹ آف ویو سے بھی. نیوکلیئر ڈیٹرنس کو کائنڈلی یہ دیکھیں کہ سیکورٹی کے اندر نیوکلیئر ڈیٹرنس کا رول بہت منیمم ہے. آپ نیوکلیئر ویپن سے اکثر کہتے تھے کہ جی ویپنس کا فائدہ جب آپ اپنے دہشت گردوں کو نہیں کر سکتے تو یہ نہیں کر سکتے. न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स का सोली मकसद न्यूक्लियर थ्रेट को और किसी भी इंटरनेशनल थ्रेट को ईस्टर्न साइड से डिटर करना, ईस्टर्न साइड से, ये भी हमने स्पेसिफाई किया होगा पाकिस्तान में, कहीं और से नहीं। सो अगर इंडिया बैलिस्टिक मिसाइल्स बना रहा है तो उसको आपने काउंटर, जरूरी नहीं बैलिस्टिक मिसाइल से ही करें, ऑफ कोर्स दैट इज द मोस्ट पोटेंट मीन, बट आपने कॉस्ट इफेक्टिव ऑप्शंस के थ्रू ही उसको किया होगा। और न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स को के बारे में और मिथ ये समझी जाती है कि पता नहीं कितने पैसे खा गया, अगर जाएंगे उनको तो देन यू कैन नॉट मेक इट। सो इट इज़ अ गुड मैन्स चॉइस। इस पे इतना रिसोर्सेज हमारे नहीं जाते जितने कि शायद सोशल मीडिया पे अक्सर एनालिस्ट प्रोजेक्ट डाले होते हैं। तो न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स अगर हम इंडिया को अगेंस्ट बना रहे हैं तो उसका मकसद सिर्फ और सिर्फ उस थ्रेट को डिटेक्ट करना है जो हमें रिपीटेडली फील होता है। आप मुझे 7 साल या 8 साल अपनी हिस्ट्री में से बताएं जब आपने स्कूल से गुजारे हों और आपको ईस्टर्न साइड से कोई थ्रेट हुआ है। इवन कि न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स बनने के बाद 2001 में आपके बॉर्डर पर फौज आ गई, 3 साल बाद कोल्ड स्टार डॉक्ट्रिन आ जाती है, सारी डिप्लॉयमेंट्स उनकी, कहते हैं चाइना हमारा मेन थ्रेट है, पाकिस्तान से कोई मसला ही नहीं है, सारी की सारी फौज उनकी आपके बॉर्डर पर लगी हुई है, टैंक्स उनके लगे हुए हैं, एयर बेसिस उनकी आपके अगेंस्ट फॉरेस्ट है। वो कहते हैं हमारा तो न्यूक्लियर का मकसद भी चाइना को थ्रेट करना है। लेकिन अभी मिस्टर यूशा आपको बताएंगे कि सबमरीन बैलिस्टिक मिसाइल्स उन्होंने बनाए हैं, उनकी तो रेंज 750, 1250, एक 3500 वाला बीजी को टारगेट नहीं कर सकता जब तक वो बिल्कुल चाइना के पास न जाके टारगेट करे। अरेबियन सी और बे ऑफ बंगाल से तो उसको टारगेट नहीं कर सकेगा। 750 आपने किसके अगेंस्ट बनाया, 350 वाला किसके अगेंस्ट बनाया है, ब्रह्मोस जिसकी रेंज 390, फिर आपको 720, 750 तक जा रहा है, वो किसके अगेंस्ट बन रहे हैं। सो आप कबूतर वाली आंखें बंद नहीं कर सकते, आपने उसका मैया देना है। बट आई एग्री विद यू, वी नीड टू गो फॉर स्मार्ट ऑप्शंस। और आई थिंक कि हमने अपनी इस रिसेंट सिक्योरिटी पॉलिसी के अंदर इस चीज़ को हमने अप्रिशिएट करते हुए और हमने इसको कंसिडर कर रहे हैं कि इकॉनमी इज द रियल थिंग एंड वी आर नॉट इंटरेस्टेड इन एनी काइंड ऑफ आर्म्स इन इंडिया।
Thank you, Mr. Sufyan. Now I invite the chair of the session, Dr. Zahid Ahmed, to give short remarks about the session.
very much impressed जो इस तरह के क्वेश्चन आ रहे हैं। इस्लामाबाद में कैसे नहीं young students
thank you very much. The three scholars talked extensively on different aspects of the broader title of the session was strategic environment in great power politics in the Indian Ocean region. Professor Hilali talked about Indian Ocean and particularly dig out facts and figure about how the name of Indian Ocean, different name he mentions in different period of time, and he talked about Afro-Asian Ocean, and then he talked about strategic interest in the region in the context of Pakistan national interest. And then Professor Dr. Amir Raza talked about Quad, and he focused in his presentation on implication of Quad for Pakistan. Then he talked about, they discussed Quad in the context of China threat, China encirclement and Belt and Road Initiative. The third scholar, Sufyanullah Saab, talked about Quad and then particularly its implication for South Asian region. He focused in his speech on Pakistani interest in the development in Indian Ocean region, whether it was Quad or it was Australia, UK, US alliance, China threat, and he particularly talked about two models, Chinese model and US model, and talked about win-win model and zero-sum model. One was like a deterrent model, one was like economic integration model. He talked about Indian designs in Indian Ocean, net security provider, Indian hegemonic design, Indian preeminence design in the Indian Ocean,
Apart from that, he also talked about Quad, and some experts call it Asian NATO. So it was a comprehensive presentation. The three scholars discussed different aspects and educated us to a great extent what's development are taking place in the so-called competition of great powers. We are thankful to the three scholars, and particularly the question answer session was very useful, very helpful, very informative, and the student asked very relevant questions in the scholar, and way replied to them. So it's good that if you want to ask question in English or in Urdu, our scholars are here to reply. So it helped us, this session helped us a lot to increase our understanding of the development going on in Indian Ocean. Being a chair of the session, once again I am thankful to the scholar, and I am thankful to the students, particularly those students who ask very pertinent questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zahid Anwar. Now we will begin our third session, which was scheduled after the lunch, but we have to make our lunch after this session and we have to conclude it. The third session will be chaired by Dr. Nasir Hafiz, Director Research, SBI Islamabad. We have three speakers in the second session, or the last session as well. The first speaker is Ms. Aisha Khan. She is an Associate Director, SBI Islamabad. She has been associated with the SBI since 2017. She completed her MPhil in Defense and Strategic Studies from Peshawar University, Islamabad. Her BS Honours in Defense and Diplomatic Studies from Peshawar University, Rawalpindi. She completed 4 BS and MPhil degrees with distinctions. She has authored a chapter on peaceful uses of nuclear technology and Article 4 of the NPT in an upcoming book titled Problems and Prospects of the Non-Proliferation Regime. She has also authored a research paper on nuclear deterrence in South Asia in Journal of Security and Strategic Analysis. Her area of interest are nuclear deterrence, non-proliferation, nuclear doctrines, and emerging new technologies. She has been contributing in her areas of interest in newspapers, national blogs, workshops, journals, and books. Ms. Aisha Khan, please.
Assalamualaikum everyone. Thank you so much, Zahra, for the chair. Speakers prior to me have set the very good pace. They have elaborated the whole Indian Ocean region, and Sufyan was kind enough to even explain the dynamics of the nuclearization of the Indian Ocean region. So it has made my job easier, but I'll try to keep up the pace as the previous speakers have done. My topic today is the nuclearization of the Indian Ocean, India's policy. Indian Ocean region, which is currently contested by almost all major powers, is steadily moving towards a complex set of dynamics which extend beyond the India-Pakistan equation as well. Nuclearization of the Indian Ocean region is given much attention, but it is important to highlight here that this phenomenon is not new. Nuclearization of the Indian Ocean started prior in the Cold War time. During Cold War, even after it, the global powers have motivated their naval, have maintained their naval nuclear prominence in the region due to their strategic and economic interests. If we come to the case of India, which is my topic, India being a littoral state to the Indian Ocean region, views the region as its backyard and considered it its own area of the influence, as it's already mentioned by Sufyan that they want to be considered as the net security provider in the region. So today, with the ambition of becoming a dominant regional power to be able to exercise maximum power and policy of the sea denial, India is involved in the aggressive pursuit of nuclear and military build-up in the Indian Ocean region. For naval nuclearization, it is important for states to have a submersible ship platforms. submersible ship platforms are the submarines. There are two types of nuclear submarines, which are SSBNs and SSNs. SSBNs are capable of not only having a nuclear reactor, but they can also fire a ballistic missile with nuclear capable. And then SSNs are considered as nuclear attack submarines. These submarines have a nuclear reactor, but they don't have the nuclear ballistic missiles inside them. They might have conventional precision striking weapons inside them. So for the naval nuclearization, SSBNs are the critical technologies, as these submarines not only provide the ability to stay submerged for a longer period of time, but they also have the capability to fire nuclear capable ballistic missiles for initiating the process of naval nuclearization. India began toying with the idea of the submerged nuclear platforms very early on because of the strategic importance of these platforms. We know that the Indian Ocean region and its nuclearization have become a hot topic in last 1.5 decades, but studies indicate that India has actually started exploring the idea of nuclear platforms in 1966. Until 1980s, its nuclear scientists were not able to produce a viable nuclear reactor for naval nuclear submarines. Different strategic agreements which speakers before me have mentioned, like Capcom, Gaza, etc. Thus, by its action and implications of those actions, India has been deliberately enhancing its naval capabilities to become dominant regional power. Now, the naval power provides states with what ability? They provide states with the ability to influence states to achieve its economic, political, and military ends on and through the oceans. In this regard, to assure those nuclear deterrents are a potent way to assure second strike capability and enhance deterrent stability ideally, but the prerequisite is the notion of the mutual vulnerability, which must be respected between the nuclear rivals. If the goal remains to break free from the constraint of the mutual vulnerabilities, then technological developments of one party will be causing insecurities for other. So in case of India, its goal of being a global power does not allow it to respect any constraint, which is becoming a serious cause of instability in the region. Moreover, India's quest of these platforms and weapons goes against its own nuclear doctrine, which says that India wants to adhere to the policy of credible minimum weapons. Although India maintains that it is investing in naval leg because it declares it adheres to the policy of no first use, we know that in recent years many Indian bureaus, civil and military bureaucrats and policymakers have stated that India's no first use is an unreliable policy. Thank you so much. I'm open to more question and answer session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aisha. The second speaker of the session will be Dr. Zahid Anwar, Dean Faculty of Social Sciences and Professional, University of Peshawar. Dr. Zahid will be speaking on Indo-US partnership in the Indian Ocean region, goals and objectives.
Honorable Chair of the session, resource persons, faculty member and dear students. In the Indian Ocean is a vast theatre stretching from the state of Malacca and western coast of Australia in the east to Mozambique Channel in the west. It encompasses the Persian Gulf, the Arabian Sea in the north, all the way down to the southern Indian Ocean. Ladies and gentlemen, along the coast of this huge geographic expanse are countries that are home to some 2.7 billion people. The Indian Ocean is key sub-regions are South Asia, the Middle East, the eastern coast of Africa, and the island dotting the ocean from Sri Lanka to the east to the Comoros are Aleppo in the west. Dear students, the region's size and diversity explain its geoeconomic importance. While it may be difficult today for one nation to control the entire Indian Ocean the way it was controlled in the past by the British, by the French and by the Portuguese empires. Dear students, the importance of trade and the sheer scope of its many sub-regions make the Indian Ocean critical in terms of military and strategic engagement. It is a vital trading hub connecting the Middle East to Southeast and East Asia, as well as Europe and America. Any disruption along its trading routes will impact the entire globe's energy security, let alone that of significant economies like China, Japan, South Korea, which depend on energy imported primarily via the Malacca Strait. Ladies and gentlemen, there are many choke points for oil transportation so far Indian Ocean is concerned. The first choke point is the Malacca Strait between Malaysia, Singapore and the Indonesian island of Sumatra. The second choke point is the Strait of Hormuz. The third is the Bab el Mandeb Strait, which flows between Eritrea and Djibouti to the Horn of Africa. There is another choke point that is also the Mozambique Channel between Madagascar and Mozambique. If a navy has access to and influence over these choke points, it can oversee all entry and exit points into the region. Moreover, presence near key choke points help a nation's anti-submarine warfare and surveillance missions, which create maritime domain awareness. Ladies and gentlemen, in the scheme of American grand strategy for the New World Order, India has emerged as the most powerful regional ally. The emerging strategic partnership between the US and India is based on a shared concern, that is the rise of China in Asia. The Indo-Pacific region is an emerging hub of global and regional politics, having the fastest economy and human resource potential. Both the US and India have declared each other as priority partners in the region, but both are concerned about China's military presence in Indo-Pacific region. India has been seeing the China's string of pearls strategy as an attempt to specify India's role in the Indo-Pacific region. Indian strategic planners are concerned about China assistance for force and refueling station in Gwadar, Pakistan, Hambantota, Sri Lanka, Chittagong in Bangladesh, and Kayoko and Sitwa in Burma, Myanmar. In recent years, as China has continued its rise as an economic, political and military power, India and US have sought a deeper strategic relationship. Since the signing of the US-India Joint Strategic Vision Statement for the Asia-Pacific and Indian Ocean region in 2015, the emphasis has been on the development of closer maritime ties with concerted efforts by both states to expand engagement in the region. Recent Malabar exercises of the Quad are an example. With India greater arms procurement from the US and inking of the fundamental agreements, India readiness for integrated operation and littoral has grown. Ladies and gentlemen, one other important point so far India-US partnership in the region is concerned, Indo-US strategic partnership has severe implications for Pakistan. And the partnership has paved the way for a deal under which India would buy conventional weapons valued $5 billion from US, which includes supersonic fighter jets, highly sophisticated missiles and other major military equipment. The export control waiver granted to India has brought both countries, India and the US, closer to each other. 123 agreement between India and US would not only allow India to continue to pursue nuclear program by keeping 8 reactors for military purposes, but will also allow assured supply of nuclear fuel by 46 countries' nuclear supply growth. The partnership will have political and diplomatic implications as well. Ladies and gentlemen, India's national security objectives are clear in the sense that it sees Indian Ocean region as an extension of India. The rising Chinese ingress in Indian Ocean is posing considerable challenges to its dominance and hegemony in the ocean. China's Strait of Malacca dilemma is turning attention of China to Gwadar, another force in the Indian Ocean region. The Indo-US cooperation has posed a significant threat to strategic stability in Indian Ocean region. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude. The growing equation of strategic partnership between India and US will embolden India to pursue belligerent and aggressive strategies against its neighbors, thereby fueling a never-ending arms race in the region and yielding strategic asymmetries between the competing states. Pakistan is a key player in South Asia. However, the broader economic interests of US are linked with India, which are likely to further increase convergences between the two states and hence their bilateral defense cooperation, thereby further raising the stakes for Pakistan in the region. Pakistan is against none. Pakistan is striving for peace in the region, but Pakistan is also aware of its national interests, and any development taking place which is disturbing the balance of power in the region may create problem for not only Pakistan but for other regional countries as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Saab, for enlightening us about the objectives and goals of the Indo-US partnership in the Indian Ocean region. Now we are going to our next speaker, Dr. Sheikh Sorwardi, Chairman, Department of International Relations and former Director of the Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies at the University of Peshawar. He completed his MPhil and PhD from the University of Edinburgh, Scotland. He remained Fellow of Fulbright, Carnegie, Charles Bass, Higher Education Commission and Edinburgh University. He taught at the Fulbright Commission, Bulgaria for 5 years from 2010 to 2014, where his teaching and training concerned peace and conflict resolution during the 21st century, especially in the conflict zone like Fatah, Afghanistan and Middle East. Dr. Sorwardi has written more than 42 research papers on India, Pakistan, tribal areas, war on terror and US-Pakistan relations. Dr. Sorwardi, please.
Thank you so much for inviting me to speak over the subject that is under consideration at this forum. I am very grateful to SBI as well as China Study Center and my second home, I say, the Political Science Department. I have more friends in the Department of Political Science than even my home department, and I always appreciate them for being so kind, docile, and so sweet to myself. This subject has been quite discussed in much detail, and while sitting here, I was thinking if I would do the same thing. So I have taken out those particular things which have not yet been discussed. So I am dividing my subject today, presentation, into two parts. One is I am taking this subject from the point of view of theories, and the second is the blue economy, like Indian Ocean and blue economy, how that is responding to Pakistan's needs, and what is in fact blue economy that word is talking so much about, and of course this all will be embedded into Indian Ocean and how we should respond to that. This Indian Ocean region, I have been told that Dr. Dilali has spoken a lot about it, Indian Ocean region or Indian Ocean. Normally we apply two-pronged strategy with respect to this entire region, and that is, when I say we, I mean not only Pakistan, China as well. And this two-pronged strategy is, first, it consists of territorial land economic Silk Route, and the other one is maritime Silk Route. And they both are interrelated, because till Gwadar it is land, and from Gwadar onwards it is maritime Silk Route that we speak about. India has really catched this a lot, this entire Indian Ocean, and you remember 1990s, they used to say, look east policy, but now they say, act east, think west. So they are working more here, and the long-term project is not to annoy the West, and therefore act east, think west. Act east, think west. They are working more here, targeting the Western allies, friends there. So that, and then more or less it is like a Monroe Doctrine of United States that they have given in their own part of the world, and we believe that somehow it is a counter narrative to what China is talking about. It's BRI. BRI itself is a Monroe Doctrine of China in this region, and you know it very well. It's Monroe Doctrine and what this BRI is, and we are quite much into it. And then comes the third one, with respect to theory, comes Kautilya. I have researched on Kautilya a couple of months back. For 6 months, I read a lot, and I feel so sorry that Kautilya kind of people are ignored in Pakistan. He was born in this part. He was teacher in Texila University, Texila in those days it used to be called. And what a wonderful, amazing Kautilya philosopher was. But somehow, after independence, Pakistan here and India there, we exported all Hindu philosophers to them as well. Okay, ye bhi lete jao apne saath. Halanki we should have owned him, and we should have had a university in the name of Kautilya right there in Texila, or in that part of the world where he was born. But that's unfortunate. And one thing, and second thing, somehow we have dissociated even his thoughts. Is it because he was Hindu? No. He was from here, so okay. Anyways, whatever the reason, but we dissociated. We divorced him to India, and India is right now. They are following his philosophy. One of his philosophy is have very good relations with your neighbor's state. So he says that all your neighboring countries are your enemies. You have to develop relations with beyond neighboring country. So for example, if Pakistan, and you know that Pakistan is neighboring state of India, they are developing more ties with Afghanistan. If China is neighboring country, they are going beyond China, Russia, and so on and so forth. And then it's a huge, wonderful exercise that Kautilya has given this theories of circle. We say Chakravarta Patha, the way he speaks about it. Arthashastra in his book, he talks about that. And then he also talks about Himalayas and the sea. And he says between Himalayas and the sea, which means Indian Ocean, this entire territory, he talks 9,000 Ugandas in his own language, that is a unit of the area that he speaks, and he says that this area is wonderful, but we have to take control of the waters so that we may control this entire region. So Kautilya is also very important. But Mackinder theory, it's impossible to discuss the importance of Indian Ocean without Mackinder theory, and that his word is island theory. He states that Indian Ocean is a link area for Atlantic and Pacific. So he says that you do not have any control here, you cannot reach to Atlantic and Pacific, and you know that power center shifts. So before 1945, power center was in Mediterranean. It was in Europe, Mediterranean. Then it shifted to Atlanta, to US. And now we are anticipating that this power center from there will be shifted to east. And when I say east, I mean in China, and that would be somewhere here, which means in Indian Ocean that China will take control of. And you know that BRI basically is the entire project that they say that future world order will be emanated from here. And when I speak with Chinese and I ask, آپ لوگ اتنے عاشق کیوں ہیں ہم پہ 60-70 ارب ڈالر ہم پہ لگا رہے ہیں؟ تو their answer is very interesting. And they say that we are not interested in you, sorry. We are not interested in you, but we are interested in ourselves. They say that یہ پورا علاقہ ہے نا، اگر یہاں پر سپر پاور بنتی ہے تو اس کے خاص ٹائم ہوتا ہے، 50 سال 70 سال 100 سال سے زیادہ اوپر نہیں گرتا، کیونکہ پورا ایریا ڈرٹی ہے، کمزور ہے، بیکورڈ ہے، اور یہ بیکورڈ ایریا اس کو گرا لیتا ہے. تو کہتے ہیں ہماری چائنیز اینشینٹ فلاسفی یہ ہے کہ ٹو بیکم سپر پاور یو ہیو ٹو ڈیولپ دا ریجن، دے ول بیکم ویری سپورٹیو ٹو یو. تو ہم آپ کو اس لیے ڈیولپ کر رہے ہیں کیونکہ ہم نے 100 سال کے لیے سپر پاور نہیں بننا. So remember that power center that will be shifted from Atlanta to this region will be not for century, that will be for centuries. So and different areas are highlighted there. What is the need of the time for the moment as far as maritime security policy is concerned? Some people spoke about this. Mark me that I should limit myself. Some people spoke about geostrategic importance, and then there was a question regarding the counter to certain blocks. Remember, it's very important that right now we are thinking more on geoeconomic terms, and we see in Pakistan for the first time national security policy was given. And that national security policy is more geo-economic than geostrategic. Like national security policy آپ نے کبھی بھی نہیں دیکھی ہوگی کہ اس میں weapons کی بات نہ ہو، اس میں آرمی کی بات نہ ہو، اس میں فائٹ کی بات نہ ہو. آپ کی national security policy devoid of all these things. فوکس کر رہی ہے بھائی اپنے آپ you know like ایک بڑا important subject ہے political science اور economics میں economics of defense. آپ کا جتنا بھی ڈیفینس ہے وہ economics ہی سپورٹ کرتا ہے. تو وہ بات ہم نے پھر جب بات یہ بن رہی تھی تو میں مسلسل ان کانٹیکٹ تھا، ہم نے کافی زیادہ اس پر بات چیت کی تھی، اور ہم مسلسل یہی کہہ رہے تھے کہ اکنامی از ویک، آپ ڈیفینس اپنا مضبوط نہیں کر سکتے، تو فوکس آن اکنامکس. تو ہم نے اس کی روٹ کاز پر چلے گئے کہ ڈیفینس کو مضبوط کرنے کے لیے اکنامکس، اینڈ دیئرفور جیو اکنامکس از پاکستانز سیکورٹی پالیسیز جیو اکنامکس اورینٹڈ. سو when saying is that آپ دیکھیے نا کہ 80% جو 80% bird species they are living around the oceans, اور ساری دنیا میں شہر بسائے جا رہے ہیں کوسٹل ایریاز پر. آپ اور میں سارا کا سارا جو بڑی جو جتنی بھی کالونیاں بن رہی ہیں یا سوسائٹیاں بن رہی ہیں، ساری کانٹیننٹل تھنکنگ ہے ہماری کہ ادھر ہی لگایا جائے. تو یہ بڑی بدقسمتی ہے. آپ یہاں سے اندازہ لگا لیں نا کہ پاکستان کا ڈیفینس بجٹ آپ کو تو پتہ ہے کتنا ہے، 80% ہے نا. Good, very good. I knew that this will be 80%. کتنا ہے؟
16% of the total budget.
Oh, yes, here we go. It means, thank you so much, Iftihar sir. Thank you for our education. یاد رکھیے یہ بہت عجیب سی بات ہے کہ جی رات کو جب ہم وہ بیٹھتے ہیں ٹی وی پہ 80% پاکستان کا بتاتا ہے، رات کو 80% کہاں ہے مجھے نظر نہیں آ رہا. It's 16% you said. It's 17.5%. And maximum once it was 18.5%. اب اس 18.5% میں بھی 90% is there with Pakistan Army. آپ دیکھیے دنیا میں نیوی ہے جو کہ دنیا کو ڈیولپ کر رہی ہے، کوسٹل ایریاز پہ شہر بن رہے ہیں. ہمارے سارے شہر آپ دیکھیں کانٹیننٹل سائڈ پر بن رہے ہیں. اور پھر آپ دیکھیں کہ وہ جو اس وقت جو آپ کی نیوی کی جو دگرگوں حالت ہے، یعنی آپ کوسٹل شہر نہیں بنا رہے ہیں. دنیا میں جو میکسیمم اکنامکس پروڈیوسنگ سٹیز ہیں یا اسٹیٹس ہیں ملک کے اندر کی، دے آر کوسٹل ایریاز. تو ہماری طرف ایسا نہیں ہے. آپ دیکھیے کراچی کو کچھ بھی نہیں مل رہا ہے. جو پورا ہمارا 970 کلومیٹر کا جو کوسٹل ایریا، وہاں پر ہم کوئی بھی کالونی نہیں بنا رہے ہیں. آپ کو وہاں پر نہ تو کوئی ڈی ایچ اے ملے گی، نہ وہاں پر آپ کو ملک ریاض ملے گا. یہ سارے کے سارے یہیں پر ہی آتے ہیں اور اس طرح کی کالونیاں بناتے ہیں، اور ہم بھی زبردست طریقے سے ادھر فوکس کرتے ہیں. حالانکہ that would have been wonderful had we used that coastal area. 80% of the trade is taking place through this Indian Ocean, and we see, or 34% crude oil passes through this entire region. And پاکستان کا جو فریٹ چارجز ہوتے ہیں، یعنی پاکستان میں جو پروڈکٹس آتی ہیں دنیا سے، تو اور یہ جو امپورٹڈ پروڈکٹس ہیں جو پاکستان کو، ویسے جو پروڈکٹس ہم لے کر آتے ہیں، تو اس پر ہم خرچہ کتنا کرتے ہیں. تو آپ اندازہ کیجیے، یو نو دا پور کنڈیشن آف پاکستان اکانومی، رائٹ. اینڈ یہ جو فورن کنٹینرز ہیں، یہ ہمارے پروڈکٹس لے کر آتے ہیں. اینولی ہم ان کو $6 بلین پے کرتے ہیں. آپ اندازہ کیجیے کہ کتنی سخت ضرورت ہے کہ پاکستان نیوی کے پاس زیادہ سے زیادہ اپنے شپس $6 بلین is a hell amount of money. مطلب ایک طرف تو ہمارے پاس $1 ہمارے لیے اتنا قیمتی ہے، اور دوسری طرف ہم $6 بلین تو ویسے ہی پکڑا دیتے ہیں، اور فوراً جو کنٹینرز ہیں وہ یہاں پر جو شپس ہیں وہ یہاں آتے ہیں، وہ ہمیں لوٹ کر لے جاتے ہیں. تو 990 کلومیٹر دس کوسٹل لائن، اسپیشلی سندھ میں جو 270 ہے، مکران کا جو ہے وہ 720، and you have not even thought about Makran at all. That is that wants somehow to get utilized. Pakistan کا جو exclusive economic zone ہے، اس کے لحاظ سے تھوڑا سا میں آپ کے ساتھ کچھ ڈیٹا شیئر کرنا چاہتا ہوں. 60% Pakistan's national cargo is handled by Karachi, and around 1700 cargo ships they visit Karachi annually. 1700 ships they visit Karachi annually. پاکستان کے ٹوٹل شپس کی تعداد 11 ہے. Now, with this, Pakistan's bin Qasim port carries 40% of national cargo, اور وہاں پر 1500 cargo ships visit کرتی ہیں. تو آپ اندازہ کیجیے کوئی بھی ships، اس کا مطلب پاکستان کو ٹچ کیے بغیر آگے نہیں جا رہے، یا وہ آتے ہوئے نہیں جا رہے. ہم اس کو ابھی تک کیش نہیں کر پائے ہیں. انڈین اوشن کی جو امپورٹنس ہے، دیکھیے یہ چیز ہم جو کہہ رہے ہیں نا کہ جو مینگرووز آئلینڈ ہیں ہمارے، 6th بگیسٹ مینگرووز آئلینڈ ہے. فشریز کا بہت زبردست قسم کا ہمارا یہاں پر ایک وہ ہے، اکاؤنٹ ہے. پاکستان سی فوڈ انڈسٹری carries a worth of more than $1 billion in our GDP a year, and it contributes 1.8%. Now around 600,000 tons of fish are caught annually, 600,000 fishes. Yet the export of seafood is limited to $451 million. So it is less than even half of what we are taking out from Indian Ocean. It could contribute to around $2.5 billion. That's a lot of money that we are wasting. So we say that, اور پھر اس کے بعد جو maritime ٹورزم ہے وہ بھی ہم اس پہ بالکل مل جا رہے ہیں. جو آپ کو بتانا چاہ رہا ہوں، میں بالکل اینڈ پر آ گئی ہوں، بالکل آ کے مجھے its potential is $4 billion. میں دیکھیے اسٹیٹسٹیکل ڈیٹا اگر آپ نوٹ کریں تو فائن، اگر آپ نوٹ نہیں کر رہے ہیں تو I'm telling you کہ فائدہ بلینز میں ہے جو ہم نہیں لے رہے ہیں، اور جو اٹھا رہے ہیں وہ ملینز. تو آپ اندازہ کر سکتے ہیں کہ کتنا زیادہ فوکس کی ضرورت ہے پاکستان کو towards development of navy, towards coastal development, towards our maritime security. This is جو میں نے آدھا حصہ جو اپنے اس پریزنٹیشن کا دیا، اس کو ہم بلو اکانومی کہتے ہیں. یعنی ساری دنیا کی اکانومی اقتصاد بلو پر چلتی ہے، بلو اکانومی پر. ہم لوگ اس کو بالکل ڈیوورس کیے بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں. ہم لوگوں کے ابھی کانٹیننٹل مینٹالٹی ہے، کانٹیننٹل سوچ ہے. ہم زیادہ تر ایریا پر فوکس کر رہے ہیں، زمین پر فوکس کر رہے ہیں، which is not giving us much. What is needed is focusing on blue economy. My last point that in the next 20 seconds I'm concluding. A report states that total worth of Pakistan's blue economy is $100 billion, and what we are getting out of it every year is $450 million. $100 billion and $450 million. We can understand that it's not even, I mean, I can't say it's peanuts, it's lesser than that even. So what is the need of the time? Need of the time is to fully utilize the potential of Pakistan's blue economy that is vested there in Indian Ocean.
ladies and gentlemen, for your attention. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Surwardi. I can understand you are sitting for last more than 2 hours and you are exhausted and you are going towards.
Zafar, I think before we open up the session for question and answer, I would like to add few comments, not for the reason of educating the audience, because I think everyone is quite well educated and well read, but for some other administrative reason, that we are waiting for our chief guest and he is about to join us in I think 30 minutes. So let's take advantage of this time. पहले तो मैं आप लोगों का बहुत शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ कि आई थिंक सच एन इनलाइटन्ड ऑडियंस, बड़े आप ऐसे स्टूडेंट्स हैं, आई थिंक यू हैव द पोटेंशियल टू रियली अंडरस्टैंड वेरी इंट्रिकेट मैटर्स ऑफ जियो स्ट्रेटजी एंड जियो इकोनॉमिक्स, and we are very blessed that such people are in the pipeline, which we then we can hope that you can someday sit closer to this table and we would be listening to you. I think the last session which we just now heard, our three speakers, very eminent speakers, very accurately described the geostrategic importance of Indian Ocean region, and at the same time, at the end of that, we heard from Dr. Surwardi. पहले तो मैं एक apology करना चाहता हूँ कि this is very important topic, but let me tell you that our department, SBI, and we were in discussion about this topic before this regime change. So ये है, इसका इस current political situation से कोई ताल्लुक नहीं है. तो मुझे पता है कि बहुत सारे लोगों का कोई ज़्यादा इंटरेस्ट इसमें, ये क्या है इंडियन ओशन, अब आज आके आप पेशावर में बोलना शुरू हो गए हैं. तो आई थिंक let us for a moment forget about what is happening outside in the country, and let us imagine that we are in a continuum of our political stability which we enjoyed at the time of planning this event. So I hope and I am sure inshallah ये जो थोड़ा सा ये जो disturbance है, ये turbulence है, ये लग बहुत ज़्यादा रही है, लेकिन ये है इतनी नहीं. There is a method in the madness. So it will settle down and we will continue with that. So मैं कहना ये चाह रहा हूँ कि इन्होंने बड़ी important एक point highlight किया है, that is about the Indian strategic philosophy of quotidian. I have fortunately or unfortunately had the opportunity to work on the same strategic Indian strategic thought, and very rightly I think we have been very unfortunate in expelling all the very important assets and heritage we had, the cultural heritage. वो एतजाज़ अहसन ने एक इंडियन सागा लिखी है, वो भी इसी कंटिन्यूटी इसी कंटिन्यू. What is the problem? I think the Mughal dynasty had very interestingly co-lived with these different ideologies. उनको ऐसा absorb किया था उसने, and it had a very interesting intermix of different religions, different cultures. और Hinduism basically अगर आप उसको पढ़ें in detail, Hinduism is not about any religion. In one sense, please don't misunderstand me. We are also Hindus in one sense, geographic sense. Anybody who is living on this side of Indus, and people who live in Punjab, they live on the Hindu side of the Indus. ये वो indirectly, the geographical sense, they also are Hindus. तो हिंदुइज्म और उसकी जो हिंदू स्ट्रेटेजिक थॉट है, उसकी कंटिन्यूटी को अगर आप स्टडी करें, इंडियन सिविलाइजेशन, हाँ, तो वो इंडियन सिविलाइजेशन जो है वो इंडस के इर्द गिर्द डेवलप होती है. और ये जो अखंड भारत का उनका मसला है वो यही है कि वो उनकी सारी रूट्स यहाँ पे पड़ी हैं. तो वो हिमालय से अगर वो उनके रिवर्स ओरिजिनेट करते हैं तो वो भी इंडियन सिविलाइजेशन की मार्क है. वहाँ से जो उनके गंगा और ये जमुना जो निकलते हैं, ये उनको प्रॉब्लम यही है कि आते यहाँ से रहें. कश्मीर में भी मसला यही है कि इंडियन हिंदू सिविलाइजेशन की जो पंडित्स हैं वो सारे के सारे अपनी आइडियोलॉजी के लिए जो इंडियन जो कश्मीर है वहाँ पे उनकी सिविलाइजेशन का सेंटर है. और ये भी वन ऑफ द रीज़न है कि इंडिया इज स्पिनिंग ऑन एंड नॉट अलाउड टू गिव अवे कश्मीर टेरिटरी. ये जो इंडियन स्ट्रेटेजिक थॉट है, जब तक आप ये नहीं समझेंगे तो आपको इंडियन जो सारी की सारी जो जियो स्ट्रेटेजिक इंटरेस्ट है ये नहीं समझ आएगा कि इंडिया क्यों इस टेरिटरी को रिटेन करना चाहता है, रीगेन करना चाहता है, पार्टीशन को अनडू करने का उसका क्यों ये डिज़ायर है. तो ये सारी की सारी हिस्ट्री में एम्बेडेड है. Then I think first, if I talk about Ayosha, she was talking about the nuclearization of Indian Ocean. Nuclear weapons are great weapons. یہ great equalizers کہا جاتا ہے. یہ ایسے weapons ہیں جس کا کوئی defense نہیں ہے. These are the weapons which have no defense other than that nuclear weapon itself. تو یہ سفیان صاحب کہہ رہے تھے کہ یہ پور مینس ویپن ہے. شاید تھوڑا سا اس کو بہت زیادہ ایگزیجریٹ کر گئے. اتنا نہیں ہے پور ویپن, بڑا خرچہ کرنا پڑتا ہے. یہ بات یہ ایسے نہیں ہے. لیکن یہ ایک بات درست ہے کہ ہمیں بڑے سستے پڑے ہیں, پاکستان کو بڑے سستے پڑے ہیں. میں نے اس کے اوپر ایک تھوڑا سا کام کیا تھا کہ پاکستان نے نیوکلیئر ویپنس پروگرام میں خرچہ کتنا کیا ہے. تو یو ول بی ویری ہیپی ٹو نو کہ ہمیں بڑے سستے پڑے ہیں. اس کی وجہ یہ تھی کہ ہمارے جو لوگوں نے کام کیا ہے تو ہم نے سیکنڈ ایئر میں کام کیا. R&D آلریڈی ہو چکی تھی. ہم ان کو چیزیں بنی بنائی لائے تھے اور ہم نے ان کو جوڑ کے ہم نے کام کیا. ہمارا کام بڑا سستے میں ہو گیا. تو اس لیے اس کا کوئی اتنا بڑا ایشو نہیں ہے. اکانومی جو اکنامک برڈن نیوکلیئر ویپنس انسرٹ کرتے ہیں, یہ ان کی ڈیولپمنٹ اسٹیج میں بہت تھوڑا ہوتا ہے. اصل پرابلم ان کی مینٹیننس پہ ہوتا ہے, کمانڈ اینڈ کنٹرول پہ ہوتا ہے. جو انفراسٹرکچر سرویلنس اسٹرکچر آپ اس کی جو نیوکلیئر ڈیٹرنس کو کریڈیبل رکھنے کے لیے جو باقی انفراسٹرکچر کھڑا کرتے ہیں وہ بہت پرابلمٹک ہوتا ہے. اس کے اوپر خرچہ زیادہ ہوتا ہے. تو نیوکلیئر ویپنس جب انڈیا نے انٹروڈیوس کیے ہیں نیوکلیئر انڈین اوشن میں, تو اس نے ایک پاکستان کی جو اسٹریٹجی تھی, جیسے کہ سہروردی صاحب نے فرمایا, ہماری لینڈ بیسڈ اسٹریٹجی. تو لینڈ بیسڈ تھریٹ سے ہم نے اپنے آپ کو کافی حد تک ملٹری کے اندر انویسٹمنٹ کر کے ویپن سسٹم ہم نے ڈیولپ کر لیے, لیکن سی بیسڈ اسٹریٹجی ہماری نہیں تھی. اور گریجولی اب ہم بلڈ تو کرنے کی کوشش کر رہے ہیں, لیکن جس کوانٹم اور جس طریقے سے انڈیا انویسٹ کر رہا ہے, پاکستان کے پاس اتنا اکنامک اسپیس نہیں ہے. اور دیٹ از وائی دا نیشنل سیکورٹی پالیسی ہیز کم بیک ٹو دی مین ایمفسس آف بینگ اکنامک سینٹرک. unless we have the economy, even our defense will have serious problems. ایک جو آخری بات میں ایڈ کرنا چاہتا ہوں before I open up the discussion, this is slightly my personal understanding of discourse on international relations and discourse on political science. یہ جو نیریٹو ہم پڑھتے ہیں اپنی کتابوں میں اور جو ہم پڑھاتے ہیں اپنی یونیورسٹیز میں, اس میں بہت زیادہ انفلوئنس ہے ویسٹرن یورپین تھاٹ. اور 1648 سے شاید پہلے دنیا بڑی انسیولائز تھی, and we thought کہ it has now civilized after the emergence of nation state. But probably before 1648 also there was a political system which was at work. اور یہ جو مسلم سویلائزیشن ہے, مسلم سویلائزیشن کا یورپین سویلائزیشن کی رینیسانس اور انلائٹنمنٹ میں بہت بڑا کنٹریبیوشن ہے. So we need to be taking pride of our own heritage and our history and try to dig out into the Indian Ocean. کہ انڈین اوشن جو تھا, it was dominated by the Arab trade for some period of time even before the advent of Islam. جب مسلمانوں نے یہاں پہ اپنا میسج تھرو دس سی روٹ جب مسلم ٹریڈرز لے کے گئے ہیں, تو انڈونیشیا ملیشیا میں جو اسلام کا پیغام پہنچا ہے وہ اس انڈین اوشن سے گیا ہے. یہ تو 15ویں صدی میں پورچوگیز نے پہلی دفعہ, اور ان میں سے بھی جو ایک چلے گئے امریکہ کی طرف, کولمبس صاحب اور واسکو ڈی گاما صاحب یہاں پہ آ گئے تو ان کو ڈسکور ہوا and they found out. But before that, Muslims and Arabs were already moving and doing trades. So all the water, all the coast which is washed by Indian Ocean is mostly, even till today, is inhabited by Muslims. A lot of Muslim population is there. So ہمیں پاکستان کو اس سے فائدہ اٹھانا چاہیے. And unfortunately, you will be unhappy to know کہ پاکستان اس رنگ لینڈ جو انڈین اوشین رنگ ایسوسیشن ہے اس کا ممبر نہیں. پاکستان is only left out member of this association. اچھا, اس میں سر واقعی بات تھی کہ وہ انڈیا ہمیں بننے نہیں دے رہا, لیکن کچھ ساری کوتاہی کچھ شہر کے لوگ بھی ظالم تھے, کچھ ہم نے بھی کوششیں اتنی نہیں کی جتنی کرنی چاہیے تھی. تو کچھ یہ ہے کہ سارا کچھ سیمنی سازش میں ڈالنا ٹھیک نہیں ہے, کچھ ہماری بھی کوتاہی تھی. ان چائنا ہمیں کا بھی آبزرور اسٹیٹس بھی نہیں ہے ہمارا. آبزرور اسٹیٹس میں دور دور سے لوگ آگے بیٹھے ہیں. ہمارا
پارٹیسپیٹری ہے,
پارٹیسپیٹری بھی شاید ایسا
کبھی کبھی ڈیو ٹو دا چائنا
اس کی بہت زیادہ ضرورت ہے جو ہمیں کرنے کی ضرورت ہے. سو I can add even more, but probably let me look at the watch. Acha, I think this is sufficient from my side. before I open up the question answer session, I once again, congratulate all the speakers, those who have done excellent work to prepare the ground for the question answer session. میں expect کرتا ہوں کہ آپ کھل کے سوال پوچھیں. آپ کے ذہن میں جو queries ہیں, this is the forum. And I think we have very eminent scholars right sitting on the table. اور مجھے کو بڑی خوشی ہوئی کہ ڈاکٹر انور صاحب نے جب اپنا بالکل پریسائز بڑے میتھڈولوجیکلی اپنا لیکچر ختم کیا ایگزیکٹ within allotted time. So once his presence, we can assure you we will not be intervening between you and the lunch. So this is a critical challenge. Lunch is there, our chief guest is also arriving, but we have few question answers. So the house is open for question answer session. Please identify yourself and then ask one question.
Sir, ek comments karna hai.
Ji sir, please.
Thank you so much Nasir साहब. एक चीज तो मैं सेकंड करूंगा सोरवर्दी साहब की, वो जो उन्होंने जोर दिया. आई एम वेरी थैंकफुल कि ही टोटली एम्फसिस ऑन द नेवल डेवलपमेंट और नेवी, ब्लू वाटर नेवी, बल्कि ब्लू वाटर नेवी की बजाय नेवल ब्लू वाटर इकोनॉमी, दैट इज मोर लाइक कंसंट्रेशन. मैं इसमें सारे ऑडियंस को ये भी बताना चाहता हूँ कि आइडिया ऑफ पाकिस्तान में स्टीफन कोफन ने बड़ा क्लियरली कहा है. चैप्टर 4 में जाके देख लें, सेकंड लास्ट पे उसका जो पेज है, उसमें कहता है कि दुनिया पे रूल मैरीन करती है, लैंड फोर्सेज नहीं. हमारे यहाँ चक्कर ही कुछ ऐसा उल्टा चल निकला है कि लैंड फोर्सेज आर मोर डोमिनेटेड एज कम्पेयर टू मैरीन. आई विश के पाकिस्तान में मैरीन आगे आ जाए, देन यू विल सी कि हाउ कैन वी आर काउंटरिंग इंडिया एंड वेयर विल बी इंडिया. जो सर ने बात की ना कि हम, और ये बहुत बड़ी ट्रेजेडी है कि हम इंडियन ओशन एसोसिएशन के मेंबर ही नहीं है. मैं अगर गया था कारो में तो ब्रिटिश आदमी के पासपोर्ट पे नहीं, पाकिस्तानी पासपोर्ट बेस के ब्रिटिश की पार्टिसिपेशन पे गया था उनके नुमाइंदों के साथ. उन्होंने कहा था कि इफ यू विल इंट्रोड्यूस योरसेल्फ कि आई एम फ्रॉम पाकिस्तान, देन यू कैन बी लाइक ए गेट आउट फ्रॉम दैट कॉन्फ्रेंस. हमारी ये हालत थी. और पाकिस्तान एक बहुत बड़ा एक्टिव मेंबर है, सॉरी एक्टिव कंट्री है इंडियन ओशन पूरे रीजन का. और वी आर लाइक ए कॉर्नरस्टोन ऑफ द इंडियन ओशन होल ऑफ द स्ट्रेटजी. पर आई विश कि गवर्नमेंट हमारी इस चीज़ की तरफ बात करे. एक छोटा सा कमेंट, योशा ने जो बात की, मैं तो डर गया जिस अंदाज से इन्होंने एफएफ और एफएस की बात की है, जिस अंदाज से. मैं इसमें थोड़ा सा जरूर योशा को काउंटर करूंगा. सुब्रमण्यम स्वामी बहुत बड़े इंडिया के डिफेंस एनालिसिस्ट हैं, उसके साथ डॉक्टर नैयर ने भी इस पेपर बड़ा लिखा है. फिर इज्जत रॉय की जस्ट 2 years बिफोर ही हैज published the book on naval development in South Asia. उसमें वो 2 चीज़ें इंडिकेट करते हैं. इंडिया के पास वेटरन्स भी आ गया है, लाइक ए फ्लीट्स इक्वल टू लाइक 7 फ्लीट्स. यकीन करिए सारा कुछ होने के बाद 2 चीज़ें या 3 चीज़ें जो पाकिस्तान के पास हैं. एक गॉड गिफ्टेड के फ्रांस से हमें एग्जॉस्ट मिसाइल मिल गए, और इसका एक एक्सपेरिमेंट 1985 में फॉकलैंड वॉर में हुआ, और आपने देख लिया कि कैसे शेफर्ड बर्बाद हुआ. और फिर उसके बाद पाकिस्तान के जो 200 एग्जॉस्ट मिसाइल थे वो कैसे मेन स्ट्रीम पे आ गए. फिर उसके बाद 1700 आपके पास टॉर्पेडोज हैं, और एक बहुत बड़ा फ्लीट इस रीजन में आपके पास सबमरीन्स का है. माइट बी दीज ऑल आर द कन्वेंशनल. इंडिया को मुसीबत पड़ी हुई है कि इन चीज़ों से हम कैसे बाहर आए, और हाउ कैन वी हैव टू काउंटर पाकिस्तान. तो एज लॉन्ग एज दिस हैव द कैपेबिलिटी विद पाकिस्तान, ये एक बड़ी एक स्ट्रेटेजिक एडवांटेज है जो पाकिस्तान के पास है. और आई विश दे हैव टू बी सेफ और दे हैव टू बी लाइक कंटिन्यू दैट स्ट्रेटजी. तो इतने डरने की भी बात भी नहीं है कि इंडिया कैन बी इजीली डाइजेस्ट पाकिस्तान और वो कराची तक एक्सेस कर ले. इंडिया को मुसीबत, आप मैं नहीं चैलेंज कर रहा, सुब्रमण्यम स्वामी चैलेंज करता है इंडियन गवर्नमेंट को कि विक्रत को ओपन सी में लेके जाओ. वो कहते हैं कि पाकिस्तान के पास जो एग्जॉस्ट मिसाइल है उनको कौन फेस करेगा. वी कैनॉट पुट द लाइक ए विक्रत इन द ओपन सी एंड आउट ऑफ द बॉम्बे एंड कलकत्ता. तो हमें इतने परेशान होने की जरूरत नहीं है, लेकिन somehow again we have to come back with the blue water navy and we have to develop, we have to produce a very concrete and sound strategy for that angle. Sir, thank you so much.
I think you can use the opportunity in the question. I'm sorry. Ji, kindly ask question. Ji.
Dr. Hidayatullah Khan, Assistant Professor, Department of Physics, University of Peshawar. So it's rather a comment, right? It's not a question, and this is from Ma'am Aisha. I'm glad that you have authored a chapter in your book, and this chapter is intimately related to the description of missiles, some sort of missiles. In this scenario, I would say that while discussing missile technology, we must not ignore space technology because they are inextricably intertwined. And as far as India is concerned, we are unfortunately lagging much behind India. We must have our own launching pad, our own satellite equipped with devices and sensors, which we don't have at the moment, so that to guide the missiles, right? And the other is related to Sufyan Saab. While discussing nuclear technology, we must make distinction between two disciplines. One is the clean nuclear technology, another one is dirty. The clean nuclear technology is a good choice, of course, but unfortunately it's uncontrollable now because we can get clean energy due to fusion reaction. As far as the fission reaction is concerned, it's quite dirty and it has far-reaching effects, detrimental effects upon our lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hidayat, for highlighting this important aspect. We will take few questions, 2 or 3 questions in this session, as we all are exhausted. We have to go to lunch. So, any question from this side or their side?
क्वेश्चन ना आए तो सेशन खत्म नहीं होगा. ये बता दो ये क्वेश्चन पार्टिसिपेशन नहीं करना. हाँ क्वेश्चन ना आए तो सेशन अनाउंस कर दो शामिल
ये अनाउंसमेंट डॉक्टर हुसैन शेख सोहवर्दी की तरफ से कि अगर फीमेल स्टूडेंट्स की तरफ से क्वेश्चन ना आए तो सेशन खत्म नहीं होगा. तो काइंडली एक क्वेश्चन जरूर करें आप लोग.
बाय एप्लीकेशन ये कि लंच नहीं होगा. ये जी बोलिए.
Assalamualaikum sir. Sir, I am Masood from Political Science, final semester. I have a question from Dr. Saharwardi sir. Sir, you have pointed out a very important point, the blue economy. So, what Pakistan should do to develop a blue economy, and what are the prospects and challenges to us? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good question. मैंने कोशिश तो यही की थी कि सब चीज़ें यही बताई जाएं, लेकिन एक दो उससे पहले मैं जब से बैठा हुआ हूँ कमेंट करूँ, प्लीज माइंड मत कीजिएगा. एक तो ये होता है कि माय क्वेश्चन इज फॉर डॉक्टर सैयद, माय क्वेश्चन इज फॉर सुफियान, इट्स नॉट फ्रॉम सुफियान. इसका मतलब है कि सुफियान आपसे सवाल पूछेगा तो फ्रॉम नहीं होता, फॉर होता है. ठीक है, कि आपकी एजुकेशन की. हम यहाँ पर बैठे हुए हैं, चाइना स्टडी.
अच्छा यार, गुजारा करना
ये जरूरी है सर, इससे पहले कि कोई और किसी के सामने
स्टूडेंट यार, स्टूडेंट है वो.
मैं कह रहा हूँ ना स्टूडेंट, इसीलिए तो कह रहा हूँ, वरना आप और मैं होते तो मैं कभी
ना वो क्लास रूम में.
अच्छा, अब ये भी क्लास रूम में. दूसरा ये कि the quality of questions I am finding more informative than analytical. You are more inquisitive about ये क्या है, तो ये गूगल करके पढ़ लेना. इधर आने की तो क्या जरूरत है? मेरी बात समझ आ रही है कि नहीं? देखिए, हम यहाँ पर बैठे हुए हैं चीजों को एनालाइज करने के लिए. आपके एनालिटिकल क्वेश्चंस होने चाहिए ताकि उस पर डिबेट हो. मैं कोई बात करूं अपने को क्या कहते हैं उर्दू में, ख्यालात का इजहार करना. एकदम से एक और प्रोफेसर साहब हैं, वो बताते हैं नहीं जनाब मेरा इस तरीके से इस तरह इख्तलाफ है. मैं जब कहूँगा 2 2 4 तो वो क्या इख्तलाफ करेगा मुझसे. तो आपके क्वेश्चन ज्यादातर फैक्चुअल हैं, तो कोशिश करें एनालिटिकल क्वेश्चन पूछिए. ये तमाम फैक्ट्स तो आपको वैसे मिल जाते हैं. मैं 2 चीजें आपके सामने अभी हाईलाइट करके बैठा हूँ और आंसरिंग डायरेक्टली योर क्वेश्चन, एंड दैट इज दैट right now Pakistan National Shipping Corporation import and export पाकिस्तान का 7% कंट्रोल कर रहा है. Just 7%. वो कितनी रिच ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है पाकिस्तान की, और बाकी तमाम फॉरेन कंपनीज जो है वो टेक केयर कर रही हैं. तो अगर ये एनुअली पाकिस्तान नेशनल शिपिंग कॉर्पोरेशन इसको देख लेता है तो 1.5 बिलियन डॉलर्स की पाकिस्तान को इन अर्निंग होगी। यदि मैं फ्रेट वाला तो बता चुका कि हम फ्रेट बाकी कंपनियों को 5 बिलियन डॉलर दे रहे हैं पर ये वो तो अलहदा है, और ये नेशनल शिपिंग कॉर्पोरेशन जस्ट 7% पाकिस्तान के इंपोर्ट और एक्सपोर्ट को संभाले। तो आप अंदाजा कीजिए कि ये कितना ज्यादा कमा सकता है अगर ये पाकिस्तान का जो ज्यादा इंपोर्ट एक्सपोर्ट है उसको संभाले। एक और चीज बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, इसमें पन भी आ सकता है कि वो जो शिप तोड़ने में तो माहिर है ना हम लोग, तो शिप ब्रेकिंग दुनिया में एक बहुत बड़ी इंडस्ट्री है, और ये गडानी का एक इलाका है, आप कराची के करीब देखें ना गडानी, यहाँ पर शिप ब्रेकिंग पूरी पाकिस्तान को पूरा एक सेटअप बनाया हुआ है वहाँ पर। और 2011 में हमने 1485 शिप्स ब्रेक किए थे। तो जो बहुत पुराने शिप्स हो जाते हैं उनको तोड़ना होता है। फिर पिछले दिनों अगर आपने सुना एक बड़ा खूबसूरत सा क्रूज भी आया था, सुना था कि उसको होटल के तौर पर रखेंगे, लेकिन वो आया असल में गडानी के लिए था कि यहाँ पर इसको तोड़ो और खत्म कर दो उसको। तो ये एक बहुत बड़ी इंडस्ट्री है जो पाकिस्तान इसको कैश कर सकता है। हम यहाँ से पर ईयर $100 मिलियन कमाते हैं, ठीक है, $100 बिलियन हम कमाते हैं। और मैक्सिमम मैंने बताया 2011 में पाकिस्तान ने 1485 शिप्स तोड़े थे यहाँ पर, हालांकि इसी गडानी से हम $3 बिलियन एनुअली कमा सकते हैं। आपको ये जो पूरा मतलब असल में तो पूरा वो नहीं है, सारा कॉन्फ्रेंस है, तमाम लोगों ने बातचीत करनी है। मैं अगर ये पढ़ने के लिए बैठता हूँ आप सब ट्वीट लेंगे अपना कि सर ये बिलियंस ऑफ डॉलर्स जो है ये क्यों, जैसे अभी लाल साहब ने कहा है ना, फोकस ऑन नेवी, फोकस ऑन 11 शिप्स पर तो आपकी पूरी नेवी 11 शिप्स पर आपकी पूरी नेवी चल रही है। तो आपका जो डिफेंस बजट है, मैंने कहा उस डिफेंस बजट पे 17.5 और उन साहब ने 16 का बताया, उसका 10% यानी उसका जो टोटल डिफेंस उसका 10% आप नेवी को देते हैं, वो तो भूखे मर गए हैं। तो समहाउ अगर हम इसमें इन्वेस्टमेंट करते हैं तो बिलियंस एंड बिलियंस ऑफ नॉट रुपीस डॉलर्स हम कमा सकते हैं। पर किस्मती ये है कि हमारा फोकस अभी तक उसकी तरफ हो नहीं रहा है। ये कोस्टल एरियाज जो हैं ये हमारे लिए बिल्कुल सोने की चिड़िया में गोल्डन स्क्वायर साबित होने वाले हैं। थैंक यू सो मच।
डॉक्टर नूरीन।
Yes, on the Hussain, Dr. Hussain put this condition के session खत्मी की बना का सब खत्म था पोषण। So I'm breaking that. But Hussain, we all agree. Khutali the Great, that we have studied in history, and somehow unfortunately we have made the state Muslim. So I think we should rethink the ideology as well and redo it. Otherwise, the Pakistan will be, Pakistan will be left only in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Let's put it this way. Secondly, the most important issue that you have raised is the blue economy, and we already know that 60% of the revenue is generated by Karachi. 60% of Pakistan's revenue is generated by Karachi, and unfortunately the coastal area is, there is no development. You can see some of the entertainment and some of the other things, but we don't see the real development of the coastal areas, which is, I think, a very, very important issue to ponder about. Now my question is, who will build the cat? Who will transform or transfer this land army budget to the water naval force? How can this be possible? So I think we need to think about these, and we need to sit with the policy makers and started discussing the blue economy. As a political economist, you and I both understand what are the implications and the kind of situation that we are facing. Unstable economy, the dollar, the Pakistani rupee devaluation. We are not devaluing it. It's devalued with the dollar, and also the trade deficit that we are facing at the moment. And somehow it is very unfortunate. Some of the land borders, we are not utilizing it for trade. So I think we need to rethink about it. Security concerns should replace economic concerns. And I think we should not be scared of any nuclear weapons, because it's not possible. We are so near to each other that we are not going to use these nuclear weapons upon. Either Pakistan or India will not do this experiment. It's not America and Japan. It's a huge, it's a connectivity, the contiguity, and of course the international pressure. We cannot do this. My question, it would not be a question, but my question in a way that who is going to transfer all this from the land army to the navy? This is the important question, and I think this is an important issue that we need to.
So, it's a big.
Thank you so much.
Allow me, I would like to add one comment before you answer.
Well, मैं इसी पे आंसर कर रहा
नहीं, मैं आपकी एक थोड़ी सी clarification. I'm sorry to intervene, but madam, if I can clarify a difference between navy and merchant shipping. The navy is part of the armed forces, but if we talk about the which I think Dr. Sowardi is talking about National Shipping Corporation.
National Shipping.
So this is not. But I think what he was trying to say is about
commercial side.
That he didn't say, but I think there's a clear difference between naval assets and our 11 ship what he's talking about. The naval assets are the fighting machines. They do not carry cargoes. And the ships which carry cargoes come under the National Shipping Corporation. So this is a slight clarification. I may, you can further clarify.
Right. Okay. No, it's not. It's not. My study says something different. That Noreen has a. It is that the Pakistan Navy is starved. Let me say very clear. And in total words, Pakistan Navy is starved. It needs it needs a structural overhauling. It needs more funding because Pakistan is dependent upon their development. Let me say this thing before coming over here in the last 1 week when I was working on it, and honestly this part it was just a minor part. When I came over and everybody was speaking about Indian Ocean in a very strategic manner, I limited myself to blue economy. And in this last 1 week, when I calculated, it is $53 billion that Pakistan will earn from the blue economy, from the development of your very small minor navy. All of them are together, remember that. So the question is why we are not focusing on that. Now, you talked about Kotali and then I'll come directly to your question. हमारे पास एक बड़ा अजीब सा कल्चर है ना, जिसने कमाल किया पाकिस्तान में हमने उसको मार लगाई है। जिना बेचारा जो है ना रोड पे मर गया, उसने पाकिस्तान बनाया था। फिर उसके बाद एक आदमी ने नोबेल प्राइज लाया था, उसको कादियानी के चक्कर में मार दिया, उसको हमने ओन ही नहीं किया। फिर एक बच्ची लेकर आई, उसको हमने फ्रॉड करार दे दिया, उसका भी नोबेल प्राइज हमने ओन नहीं किया। वो तो ये हीरो जो हीरो बनेगा ना, उसको हमने AQ खान उसको भी हमने उसकी हैसियत याद दिलाई। वह जो टैट किस्म की कौम है ना, हीरो बनता है, हम उसको उसकी हैसियत याद दिला देते हैं। तो यही हालत फिर कोटली के साथ होगी। ठीक है, तो ये चीज हमने की, हमारी कोई एक नेशनल कैरेक्टर बनता जा रहा है मैडम, कि जो भी कमाल का काम करेगा हमने उसको बेइज्जत करना ही है। तो ये बड़ी बदकिस्मती है। मैं डायरेक्टली आपके सवाल की तरफ आता हूँ, who will build the cat?
Hello.
Remember, very important thing. This national security policy was extremely strategic. हुआ क्या? इकोनॉमी ओरिएंटेड हो गई कि नहीं? बंदा हैरान हो जाता है कि नेशनल सिक्योरिटी पॉलिसी किसी मुल्क की इकोनॉमिक ओरिएंटेड हो गई है। देखिए ये कैसे हुआ था, बातचीत हुई थी। ये आज मैं यहाँ बैठा हूँ, ब्लू इकोनॉमी की बातें करूँ, ये तमाम आप लोग क्या करेंगे? अब इसके बाद जाकर आपने गूगल करना है, आपने जाके पर्दा कराना है कि यार इसके अंदर इतना कुछ पैसा दबा हुआ है, इसको निकाला क्यों न जाए? फिर उसके बाद आप जाके मजीद क्लासों में डिस्कस करेंगे, आप लोग मजीद किसी सेमिनार में, अभी तो ये ऐसी चीजें जिसके ऊपर के कपड़ा पड़ा हुआ है, इसके ऊपर डिस्कस करना भी मतलब एक सिंफुल एक्ट है। तो ये जरूरी है कि इसको हाईलाइट किया जाए मैडम। अ टाइम विल कम व्हेन दिस विल बी हैंडल्ड सीरियसली। लेकिन मैंने एक दफा फिर आपको बता रहा हूँ, नेशनल सिक्योरिटी पॉलिसी इकोनॉमिक ओरिएंटेड हो गई है। ये बड़ी कमाल की बात है। अभी भी जब हम मैं और मुनीर बैठते हैं तो हम हंसते हैं, कहते हैं यार देखें कमाल हो गया। नेशनल सिक्योरिटी किसी भी मुल्क की, आप अमेरिका की नेशनल सिक्योरिटी पॉलिसी पढ़ लें, किसी भी प्रेसिडेंट की, आप हैरान हो जाएंगे, उसमें सिर्फ मारना मरना लिखा हुआ है। पाकिस्तान की नेशनल सिक्योरिटी पॉलिसी, इंडियन जब भी मेरे इंडियन जो दोस्त हैं जिनसे बातचीत होती है व्हाट्सएप पे, वो कहते हैं कि सैयद साहब आप लोगों ने तो पूरा कॉन्सेप्ट ही बदल दिया नेशनल सिक्योरिटी पॉलिसी का। और कहते हैं हम तमाम लोग सोच रहे हैं कि ये जो पाकिस्तान ने किया ये हम कब करेंगे, हालांकि हम राइजिंग इंडिया, शाइनिंग इंडिया के टाइटल्स तो हम लिए घूम रहे हैं।
the kind of stuff that we ask, we speak about. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Surwardi. We warmly welcome our Chief Guest, the worthy Vice Chancellor, University of Peshawar, Dr. Mohammad Idris.
So I'm very happy and glad to welcome the Vice Chancellor of Peshawar University. Before I invite him, let us close this session. I just like to add only a few comments. Whatever the discussion is being carried out is a very healthy discussion. And let us congratulate all the people who have participated in that and who have highlighted the issues. We need to understand one last thing. Whatever we discuss is in a very good spirit, trying to understand the real problem, trying to find out the issues and help develop consensus. And even if there is a difference, still we continue the debate. And we do not oppose each other. We still differ and we live with the differences. One thing which I would once again reiterate is Dr. Surwardi, kindly look back and just, if I'm sure you are very well read and I do not contest that, but I would just say that Navy is of course very important. Pakistan Navy needs a lot of funding. There is a lot of emphasis which is required. But the trade which we require and the infrastructure to develop maritime trade, I do not agree with that. So, and I think Pakistan has reached at this stage where there are a lot of challenges. And privatization has rightly taken place, geoeconomics has come to the forefront, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So with this, I end this session 2, and I just hand over the session to Pro-Chancellor Dr. Zahid Musa.
Dr. Nasir Alpi Saab, thank you very much for chairing the last session of this seminar. We are thankful to Professor Dr. Mohammad Idris, Vice Chancellor, University of Peshawar, who is chief guest of this seminar. मैंने आपको dear participants सुबह बताया था कि वाइस चांसलर साहब यहाँ आना चाहते थे, लेकिन एक इमरजेंसी मीटिंग आ गई जिसके लिए उनको जाना पड़ा. अभी वो वापस यूनिवर्सिटी तशरीफ लाए हैं, लेकिन फिर भी उन्होंने हमारे लिए टाइम निकाला. वी आर थैंकफुल टू आवर ऑनरेबल वाइस चांसलर फॉर दिस फेवर फॉर स्पेयरिंग टाइम टू कम हियर. तो आखिर में ये है कि डियर पार्टिसिपेंट, वाइस चांसलर साहब अपनी कुछ बातें करेंगे, द चीफ गेस्ट आपसे अपने कुछ थॉट शेयर करेंगे. इसके बाद एक ग्रुप फोटो होगा और फिर जो है लंच है. तो इससे जो है आज की इस डिस्कशन से आई होप यू वुड हैव लर्नड अ लॉट फ्रॉम this discussion, from scholarly discourse on Indian Ocean, different aspect of Indian Ocean. तो आखिर में I request our chief guest Professor Dr. Mohammad Idris, Vice Chancellor University of Peshawar, to say a few words.
Dr. Nasir Alpi Saab, Professor Dr. Zahid Saab, dear students, resource persons, Hilali Saab बैठे हुए हैं, रात को मुलाकात होगी. तमाम स्टूडेंट अस्सलाम वालेकुम. सबसे पहले तो मैं माज़रत कि मैं सुबह से बैठना चाहिए था, लेकिन आज हमारी PSC की मीटिंग थी तो मैं जस्ट अभी यूनिवर्सिटी पहुँचा हूँ वहाँ से. इसके बाद एक और IT के एक सर्वे थी जिनको CM साहब बुलाया था, लेकिन मैं उधर नहीं गया और मैं कोशिश की मैं कम अज़ कम आखिर लम्हात थे आपके सेमिनार के उसमें कोई सब इसमें मैं कामयाब हो गया. और सब स्पेशली आपका, आपकी टीम का मैं इंतहाई शुक्रगुजार हूँ कि आप लोग तशरीफ़ ले आए. फिर जो हमारे रिसोर्स पर्सन हैं आप आ गए और हमारे स्टूडेंट्स को जो इम्पॉर्टेंट इशू है इंडियन ओशंस का इसको आपने डिस्कस किया. इस रीजन में क्या क्या प्रॉब्लम्स है, इनके लिए क्या स्ट्रेटजी है, क्या हमें आगे सोचना है, करना है. तो आप सबका बहुत शुक्रिया. और स्टूडेंट से भी हम एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हैं कि मुझे उम्मीद है कि इंशाल्लाह आप लोग बड़ी अच्छी डिस्कशन रही होगी. मैं तो पार्टिसिपेट नहीं किया था, आप लोगों ने इंशाल्लाह उससे भरपूर फ़ायदा उठाया होगा. और आपके जो क्वेश्चंस हैं या आपको जो गाइडेंस चाहिए वो इंशाल्लाह आपको मिली होगी और आगे भी मिलती रहेगी. اسپیشلی جو ہمارے ریسورس پرسنز ہیں, ہمارے جو مہمان اسلام آباد سے آئے ہوئے ہیں, ان کے آپ کے پاس فون نمبر, اس کے ای میل آئی ڈیز وہ آئے ہوں گے, تو ان فیوچر اگر انشاءاللہ آپ کو کوئی بھی گائیڈنس چاہیے ہوگی, کوئی ہیلپ چاہیے ہوگی, تو انشاءاللہ مجھے امید ہے کہ آپ انشاءاللہ اس میں کریں گے. اور میں آخر میں ایک بار پھر آپ کا شکریہ ادا کرتا ہوں. پشاور یونیورسٹی آپ سب کو پتہ ہے کہ KT کی سب سے بڑی اور سب سے پرانی یونیورسٹی ہے, اور ہم آپ سے کچھ زیادہ امید کرتے ہیں کہ جی آپ اچھا ریسرچ کریں گے, اور اسپیشلی جو ہمارے اپنے پرابلمز ہیں ریجن کے اور اسپیشلی پاکستان کے, تو اس کے لیے ہم بھرپور کوشش کریں کہ کم از کم ہمیں ان کا لوکل جو ہے جو ایشوز ہے اس کا کوئی سلوشن بھی نکالیں, اور ہم اپنے قوم کے لیے کچھ کر سکیں. تو امید ہے انشاءاللہ کہ اس طرح کے پروجیکٹ ہم شروع کریں گے. اچھی نیوز اب یہ ہے کہ ہماری جو HISA ہے, ہائر ایجوکیشن سسٹم اسٹرینتھنگ ایکٹیویٹی ہے, USA ان کا ایک پروجیکٹ ہے جس میں پشاور یونیورسٹی بھی اس میں پارٹیسپیٹ کر رہی ہے, جو 5-6 سال کا پروجیکٹ ہے, جس میں ہم یہاں کے جو ریسرچ ہے, اکیڈمکس ہے, اور اسپیشلی جو اسٹوڈنٹ فیسلٹیز ہے اس پہ کام کر رہے ہیں. اس پہ کافی ٹریننگز بھی ہیں ہماری جو شروع ہو چکی ہیں, تو انشاءاللہ اس کا بھی بہت فائدہ سورس ہوگا. باقی کسی اسٹوڈنٹ کا اگر کوئی کویشچن ہو تو میں یہاں بیٹھا ہوں, میں جہاں بھی جاتا ہوں تو ضرور اس کو سنتا ہوں, تاکہ کسی کی کوئی کمنٹ ہو, کوئی سجیشن ہو, تو وہ ہم پتہ چل جاتے ہیں. یونیورسٹی سے ریلیٹڈ ہو, یہ جو آپ کا اسپیسیفک پرابلم ہے, تو ہمارے جو ایکسپرٹ بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں وہ بھی جواب دے سکتے ہیں. تو اگر یونیورسٹی کوئی ایشو سے ریلیٹڈ ہو, اگر ٹائم ہے تو, کیونکہ میں نے تو اپنی بات اس لیے مختصر کر دی کہ آپ صبح سے بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں, سب نے بتایا کہ اس کے بعد پھر فوٹو ہے اور پھر لنچ بھی ہے, تو کوئی آپ مجھے نہیں خیال کہ زیادہ بیٹھنا پسند کریں گے, لیکن ہاں اور تک بھی گئے ہوں گے, تو پھر کسی کا اگر کوئی کویشچن ہے ٹھیک ہے, نہیں تو ہم میرے خیال میں کنکلوڈ کرتے ہیں.
Is there any question from students? No question? Okay.
ٹھیک ہے جی,
ایک کوشچن آگے پیچھے.
اچھا سر
پیچھے سے
یہاں بسین یونیورسٹی کے اسٹوڈنٹس.
Sir, I am Daniel Ahmed from Abbasi University, Peshawar, GSIR second semester. My question is from respected Sir Dr. Sarwardi sir. Sir, آپ نے کہا کہ پاکستان is not part of Indian Ocean Association.
یہ اگر آپ تھوڑا سا برا نہ منائیں, یہ سیشن ابھی ہم کلوز کر چکے ہیں. آپ کوشچن یہ کائنڈلی ضرور لنچ ہی از اویلیبل, تو کائنڈلی یہ اسی صاحب سے اگر کوئی کوشچن پوچھنا چاہتے ہیں ڈائریکٹ فرام یونیورسٹی آف پشاور, سو آئی ایم سوری فار دیٹ. آپ ان سے
یہ اپنی سجیشن ہو,
اگر کچھ ایسی سجیشن ہے جو یونیورسٹی کے لیے ہے تو آپ یونیورسٹی سے لیتے وہ بات کریں.
سر ایک چھوٹی سی سر, ہم جو فائنل سیمسٹر کے اسٹوڈنٹس ہیں سر, ابھی یونیورسٹی تو کلوز ہو رہی ہے, لیکن ہماری فیسز کا مسئلہ ہے. اگر ہاسٹلس کو وداؤٹ کر کے ہم جو اسٹوڈنٹس اندر رہیں گے اور اپنی فیسز کریں گے تو یہ بہتر رہے گی ہمارے لیے. سر پھر اس طرح ہوتا ہے کہ میرے علاوہ پہ بجلی جب چلی جاتی ہے تو جنریٹر
ایسا ہی کیا ہوا ہے کہ جتنے بھی ہم نے ایسے ہی کیا ہوا ہے کہ جو ریسرچ کے اسٹوڈنٹس ہیں اس کو ہم شاید ڈی بلا کے یا سی یا ون کوئی ایک سا حاصل ہے اس میں ہم اکٹھا کریں, اور جو جنریٹرز ہیں وہ تمام حاصل ہیں. انشاءاللہ جنریٹر بھی چلے گیا, اس میں مسئلہ تو ہم کوئی جو اچھا حاصل ہوگا وہ ہم آپ کو دیں گے, جس میں کم کام ہوگا, جس میں ریپیئر کا کام زیادہ ہے, ریپیئر اینڈ مینٹیننس ابھی ہم نے کرنی ہے, تاکہ چھٹیوں کے بعد اسکول آ جائے تو اس کو ایک اچھی جو اس میں فیسلٹیز ہے وہ اچھی ہونے کو ملے, اور جو آپ لوگوں نے خراب کیے پچھلے ایک سال میں تو اس کو ہم ریپیئر کر سکتے ہیں. تو جو بھی اچھے کنڈیشن میں ہو گیا وہی حاصل آپ کو دیں گے. تو میں خود تمام حاصل کو وزٹ کر رہا ہوں, میرے خیال میں ڈی سب سے اچھا ہے, جس میں کم کام ہے, ہم اس کو
میرے ایک کوشچن ادھر سے
جی
آگے آ جاؤ, آگے آ جاؤ, تھوڑا سا آگے آ جاؤ.
ہماری سچویشن یہ ہے کہ ہاسٹل 1 میں کافی ٹائم سے پانی کم ہے, کوئی بھی سر مطلب ابھی تک ڈپارٹمنٹ اس میں سے سر کوئی
बच्चों ऐसा सर ऐसे भी थे कि वो मतलब खुद यहाँ पर स्टूडेंट भी रह चुके हैं और उसको ये इशू का पता था, लेकिन अभी तक किसी ने सॉर्ट आउट नहीं किया सर। आई होप सर कि गर्मियाँ हैं, आपको इसके बारे में सर
देखो यार स्टूडेंट रहा हूँ, शायद आपके इशारा मेरी तरफ है। कर रहा हूँ बी ब्लॉक, ए ब्लॉक और हॉस्टल 2 से मैं रहा हूँ। तो इस पर कल भी हमारी डिस्कशन हुई। आज सुबह मीटिंग में जाने से पहले भी मैंने वो साहब को भी बुलाया था, मैडम उनको भी बुलाया था। इस पर हम 2 काम कर रहे हैं। एक्चुअली पानी की कमी नहीं है, लेकिन बहुत ज़्यादा मिसयूज़ है पानी का। कि यहाँ हमारे जितने भी हमारे फैकल्टी, इवन मैं भी इसी हाउस से शुरू करूँ तो मेरे ख्याल में कोई 1-2 एकड़ का तो है, 2 एकड़ का। तो उसमें फिर अंदर इसमें सेटर्स का भी एक बाग है, फिर वो किचन गार्डन है और काफ़ी सारे। तो ये साफ पानी सारा उसी में इस्तेमाल हो रहे हैं। तो हम तो ये कर रहे हैं कि मैंने उनको कहा कि आप ये करें कि हम मीटर्स लगा देते हैं तमाम को, ताकि जितना भी इस्तेमाल करें उस पर गंदम भी उगा रहे हैं, उस पर मकई भी और उस पर किचन गार्डन भी है। तो ये पानी इसके लिए नहीं है, ये पीने के लिए है, क्योंकि हमारे जितने भी ट्यूबवेल 24 घंटे चल रहे हैं। इसके बावजूद पानी पूरा नहीं हो रहा, उसके ये रीज़न नहीं है। दूसरा हमने ये किया है कि हासिल के लिए हम में जो ट्यूबवेल है उसका भी मैंने कहा हुआ है कि इंशाल्लाह हम वो भी शुरू कर रहे हैं। तो उनका कनेक्शन सिर्फ हासिल को होगा, बाकी ये जो घर वगैरह है उसको नहीं होगा। तो ऑलरेडी उसमें काम
हासिल में सर हमने ये चीज़ ऑब्जर्व किया हुआ है कि बहुत ज़्यादा स्टूडेंट्स पानी वेस्ट भी करते हैं ज़रूरत से ज़्यादा। तो जो ड्यूटी है अगर हम इसको इस तरह कर ले, जो मॉडर्न ड्यूटी है जितनी आपकी ज़रूरत है तो आप इतने पानी लगाते हैं और फिर वो खुद ऑटोमेटिकली बंद हो जाता है। तो स्टूडेंट्स की
एसेंशियल वाली वो बड़ा एक्सपेंसिव पड़ेगा।
ठीक है जी, अच्छे सजेशन है। और मैंने तो जब आपको शुरू में बात की तो मैंने तो स्टूडेंट का जिक्र ही नहीं किया, मैंने सिर्फ अपना जिक्र किया और फैकल्टी का किया। लेकिन ये मसला हर जगह है। तो हम कोशिश कर रहे हैं इंशाल्लाह कि फैसिलिटीज़ जितनी भी है स्टूडेंट्स को वो अवेलेबल हो, और इसी में हमने काम शुरू किया।
Thank you,
आप सबका बहुत शुक्रिया।
Let us proceed further. We have souvenir presentation now. I invite Dr. Nasir Hafiz, Director Research SBI, to present souvenir to the World Vice Chancellor. Now I invite Dr. Zaid Anwar to receive his souvenir from Dr. Nasir Hafiz. Now I invite the World Vice Chancellor to present souvenir to Dr. Izzat Hilali. The souvenir break, please. Now I invite Dr. Sorwardi to receive this souvenir break from the World Vice Chancellor. Now I invite Dr. Amir Raza to receive this break. Now I invite Mr. Sufyan Raza to receive his souvenir break. I also invite Ms. Ayusha Khan to receive her souvenir break. Thank you, Worthy Vice Chancellor. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to extend my gratitude to all the faculty members, the Worthy Vice Chancellor, practitioners and students for joining us today. Faculty members are requested to proceed to this room, next one for lunch. Before that, we have a group photo which will be taken beneath in the stairs. So all the guests, faculty members, the Vice Chancellor and the guests are requested to be there for a group photo. And for the students, male students, on this side they have lunch program, and for female students there is on that side a separate place for them. Thank you so much for all the audience. Thank you.